Yeah, break it down. What? Yeah, what? Hey guys, how you doing today? Another scorcher today. Only 29 degrees it says. Ugh, does not feel like 29 degrees. It feels hot and sticky. If you're hearing a little hum on the audio, it is because I have some fans running. I do not have air conditioning. Ugh. So, hot and sticky, we're living with it. Lots and lots and lots of news articles today. Lots and lots of stuff going around the world. Oh man, where to even start? I mean, for me, confidence in media at an all-time low. 11% for TV news. Right? This comes from the Washington Examiner. Confidence that TV and print news media are delivering trustworthy news has plummeted to the lowest level tallied by Gallup in nearly 50 years. All political groups gave a thumbs down to the media, with Democrats making the biggest shift since President Joe Biden has been in office. Republicans, 5%, and independents, 12%. Confidence in newspapers is the lowest on record for these party groups. While Democrats' 35% has been lower in the past, Democrats' confidence in newspapers rose to the 42 to 46% range during the Donald Trump administration, but fell when President Joe Biden took office, said Gallup. For TV, the results were worse. This is the fourth consecutive year that confidence in TV news is below 20%, and for just the second time in the trend, a majority of Americans, 53%, now say they have very little or no confidence at all in TV news, said Gallup. The analysis does not give a direct reason for the general dissatisfaction for the media, though it cited another poll that showed concerns about journalistic ethics and trust. Bias in the polarized nation might also play a role. A Pew study out last week said the left-leaning reporters are okay with bias, while news consumers are not, for example. The result are from Gallup's latest confidence rating of over a dozen American institutions. As low as the media sits, it isn't the worst on the Gallup list. Sitting dead last is Congress at 7%. In the last year, the institution taking the biggest hit was the presidency, down 15 points, a number that tracks the sinking confidence in Biden shown in other polls. Gallup said the media has never been America's favorite institution, but the latest numbers suggest the industry faces a difficult recovery. Although trust in the media in the U.S. has been scarce for many years, confidence ratings for the newspaper and TV news has never been as low as they are now. Taken together, these data suggest that the media has a long way to go to win back the public's confidence. We're seeing it play out in real time. Good to see you, Cotton. Good to see you, Eric. Organizations across the spectrum are delegitimizing themselves. You'll note one of the things that this Gallup poll, right, or this Pew study, right, it's not asking people, straight up, it's not asking people, hey, do you think the system itself has legitimacy? Like, Congress is sitting at 7%. But most people would interpret that as, oh, these politicians are the problem. Well, what about the system itself? There's no conversation whatsoever. These pollsters are not asking the question, hey, is American democracy actually working? What do we think of American democracy itself as an institution? That question doesn't get asked, right? But it is very revealing. Like, 11% for TV news. My God, right? Like, this is a delegitimized enterprise. And while they delegitimize themselves, people like myself are doing everything we can to try to pick up the slack, to try to actually create spaces where we're actually talking about what's actually happening in the world, actually, for real, and trying to make sense of what it is we're seeing in spite of the TV news, in spite of the corporate-run media, right? In spite of all of this, and what's happening to us while we do it. Well, we get demonetized. We get chased off the platform. We get run out, right? A good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, right? Let people know. Let people know, because we aren't actually because their strategy at this stage in the game is the same strategy that they're employing on the world stage, right? Destroy everything, make everything so bad that only the most powerful people can actually succeed, right? Lay waste to everything, deplatform people, get them out. Don't give people other alternatives. Don't give people other options. And it is only a matter of time until people like me are just chased out of the conversation completely. It will happen. They're not just going to allow us to continue doing this while the whole thing collapses into a type of neo-fascism. Eric, you're saying you miss one, actually? What are you talking about, bud? What are you talking about, bud? I'm seeing more and more, like, people really pointing out a similarity between the film Don't Look Up and how today's news media is actually reporting on climate change. There's this banal, sort of general quiet to it, this sort of smiling idiocy that someone can come on the news media with some very dire news, and it's all supposed to be like laughy laughs and jokey jokes and dismissalism. The amount of dismissalism I'm seeing is shocking to see. I've literally seen reporters say, this all seems very dire. Like, these meteorologists seem so, like, what a dour group. Like, all they have is doom and gloom. Oh, okay, Eric. I'm getting, I don't know how to even describe it, how I feel about what's going on in the world. Like, it's obvious. Right? Like, to me, it's obvious. Like, the powerful are not responding. That when they do respond, it's with overt, obvious fascist action. We're not going to vote our way out of it. Yeah, all it will take, good to see you, CR Strifey, good to see you, John. All it will take is a power outage due to the system being under extreme stress, and boom, everyone's without AC. Yeah, then no one will be joking about it. Yeah, and like that kind of thing has already happened in places like Texas, right? Like, Texas has already experienced power grid failures. Like, last year they experienced a power grid failure, and it's not like it's not like the capitalist class sat up and was like, oh, we got to do something about this and fix this up and make this like. This is all tied together with shoestrings and wishes at this point, right? And the truth is that as long as that there really is going to be a moment where the grid is going to come down in a big and significant way, but it'll cost the capitalists more than they think they'll make from fixing it, and so they won't, right? Like that's going to be a big part of it. Oh, by the way, John, from yesterday, orcs were genetically engineered to fight. It's all they know, not because they can't. Yeah, I mean, yes. Man, how long were you waiting to come in here and say that, John? Were you losing sleep over it? Were you being there? John said something about the orcs from Warhammer 40K yesterday. I got to get in there. Let him know. I appreciate it, John. I appreciate it. Sounds like Tau heresy. Oh my God, we're gonna get some like Warhammer 40K shit in here. Is what's gonna happen. Suddenly, my channel is gonna just be flooded with a bunch of Warhammer 40K people just being like, actually, John, right? Hey Watson, how you doing? Methane, good to see you guys. I experienced a multi-hour power failure last week. Yeah, I hope it isn't gonna be a regular thing now. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, my gut tells me that, like, these capitalists are just going to shrug about it, right? They're going to be like, well, it's going to cost us money to fix it, so we won't, right? So we won't. Love this little picture, right? This from Sarah Scribbles. Absolutely nailing it as far as I'm concerned. How it feels to be alive lately, existing, That'll be $70. Okay. Yeah. Brownouts coming. Yep. I mean, it has to, right? It has to. So much of our grid is still connected to fossil fuel. So much of the grid is degrading, right? Here in the province of Ontario, we've got entire nuclear plants that are going to be decommissioned and with no plan to replace them, because the government that's in place is a criminal government that's incompetent, right? Like they're literally. Here we go. Doug Ford to give greater U.S.-style powers to mayors of Toronto and Ottawa, right? So the solution coming from the political class is to just make sure that key positions in politics are basically dictators, right? Depower the city council. Don't allow municipal politics to be effective. Give all the power to the mayor's office, and that way you can consolidate that power and ensure that you just need to control one office, and then you can basically control the city. That's essentially what's coming. And we produce more electricity than we need. Well, we produce more of everything that we need. We're a very fat and gluttonous people, right? Yeah. So when you protest, enjoy the re-education camps. Yeah. We'll see how bad it gets, but I suspect it'll get very bad. Meanwhile, right, Sri Lanka warned the West's anti-Russian sanctions will starve the global South, which is kind of more or less at the point, if you ask me. Right? They know. They just don't give a fuck. Right? They just don't give a fuck. So, let's keep it on the public mood, though, because I think that's important for us to understand. Right? We just did a report on how media trust is as low as 11% in some groups. To me, the big takeaway should be that Democrats are much more gullible when it comes to media consumption and looking at the news media, right? That it's Democrat types that watch the news and actually go, "That's right," more often. The troubles that are happening on the right, of course, is the magical thinking, right? That the belief that Jesus Christ is coming back at any moment. So the right has its own issues. What we need to do is still, Bert Gummer libertarianism. Yeah, I don't know who Bert Gummer is, but you're saying the word libertarianism, and so I'm going to scoff at it. Public mood dips. Government approval softens, and PM negatives up. So looks like the populace is beginning to catch up with us. Although the analysis by Bruce Anderson and David Coletto here I find to be very, very dumb. We'll get to it. Right, we just completed a national survey of 1,500 Canadian adults from July 11th to 17th, 2022. So, national mood slides, 4 points in a month. The number of people who say Canada is heading in the right direction continues its downward trajectory, with 33% feeling positively, down 2 since June, and down 5 since May. For context, last year at this time, before the election, 46% felt Canada was headed in the right direction. Half feel things are off the wrong track. Generally speaking, do you think things are headed in the right direction? 33%. The world is only saying 22%, and Americans are saying 18%. So what this means, right? What this means for us, right, is that 33% of Canadians are still gullible rubes. Like, if you think that Canada is headed in the right direction, you're a gullible rube, and there's nothing else to say about it. Like, it's overtly obvious that Canada is not heading in the right direction. Like, blisteringly obvious. Inflation is destroying us. People can't buy houses. The whole thing is coming off the rails, right? Climate change is absolutely destroying us. And none of it is getting better because we have a political class that is paid to ensure that all of this happens. 33% of the population is, that number is terrifyingly high. I would be saying that number is terrifyingly high at 18%. At least Americans have better sense than we do. At least they are looking around themselves and being like, oh yeah, this is all wrong. This is all wrong. The thing that I wish the polls that ask right-wingers what they think about Fox News Daily, well, they probably do, but it's just anarchists are libertarians just from a left perspective. Yeah, the word libertarian is very fraught. There's a lot fraught there. That, like, when people on the left say that they're like a left libertarian, it means something different. It's a different thing than right-wingers saying they're libertarians. That's why using the word libertarian, I highly recommend people don't. Like, I really highly recommend they don't. Because libertarianism itself is so fraught with miscommunication. Like, it's another tier of just misunderstanding people. So so it's gotten to the point now where it's no longer useful. And if leftists are using the word libertarian, I'm just like, man. So what do you do? Like, you're essentially adding like an extra hour of explanation to every conversation you have with people. I'm like, you don't need it. You don't need it. Ever watch a movie series called Tremors? Yeah, Tremors was badass. Burt Gummer. Which one was Burt Gummer? Was Burt Gummer the guy that had all the guns? He was the gun nut, right? Right. Did Justin get a Skippy haircut? Yeah, I love what the Liberals have done with Justin Trudeau's new haircut, right? Like, for those of you who don't know, let's try and find it. Justin Trudeau, Dumb and Dumber haircut. Like, this is what they've done to him, right? This is what they've done to him. So, liberals are very, very cynical. The Liberal Party is a very, very cynical party. And they dress Justin Trudeau up in order to communicate things to the public, right? So when Justin Trudeau first started, he had like he basically had Pierre Poilievre's haircut when he first started. And the whole pitch was to just make Justin Trudeau everybody's boyfriend, right? So they wanted him to look like clean cut and neat, right? And then we get into the pandemic era, and the pandemic era, his hair is big and floofy because all the politicians were growing out their hair like in solidarity with everybody else, right? And Justin Trudeau got a beard to make him look more mature and serious, right? So he's not your boyfriend, he's more like your dad, right? And it's a serious time, and so things need to be serious. They actually do polling in the public asking if the public prefers Justin Trudeau with or without the beard. And the polls come back without the beard, and so he gets rid of the beard. Keeps the floofy hair, though, which ends up making him look like a prince, like a coiffed prince, like he is, right? An arrogant, detached prince, which is exactly what he is. And now with Pierre Poilievre probably being the leader of the Conservatives, and we'll get into that, now they've given him this. And the idea here is to turn him into just like an everyman, right? The comparison between this and the Dumb and Dumber thing actually helps the Liberals because they want people to think Justin Trudeau is kind of like a reduced intellect, just everyman. Oh, I'd go out for a beer with that guy. That's what they want. That's the goal. That's the reason why they do it, right? So they know that putting this haircut. And what's Pierre Poilievre's whole pitch right now is that I'm an everyday, I care about the workers, even though I've never actually worked a job in my life. I'm literally a landlord who sat in this seat since the day I graduated from university. I don't like Pierre Poilievre is like the opposite of a working man, right? Well, which I mean, Trudeau at least Trudeau had a job. At least he was a teacher, right? But the and so they've done this in order to try to undercut. And basically the next election is going to be which one of us can appear to be the most humble, working class, stiff type, right? That's really what it's going to be. And Pierre Poilievre will probably win that, but we'll get to this. What are you guys talking about here? Yep, so that's Justin's haircut. I wonder how many of those 33% are newcomers or refugees, some sort of person being incredibly well taken care of for some random reason. I mean, that's not a bad take, actually, Methane. Like a lot of this could be just like, yeah, I came from a place where there were literally bombs dropping, so things seem okay compared to that, right? Like that makes a type of sense, and should probably be part of the conversation for sure. Yeah, Gummer is a libertarian that lives in the desert bunker. Yeah, that kills giant man-eating worms. He's a lovable, crazy, and prepped, and not afraid to say "told you so." Yeah. Someone's got a little bit of a crush on Burt Gummer. It sounds like, John. The word anarchist is being hijacked by the ANCAP as well right now. They even have a new ANCAP Netflix series called Anarchism. Well, I mean, anarchist, that's always been the case. Like, that's not new, right? Like, capitalists try to do everything to make anarchy synonymous with chaos. That's what they want. They want people to, when they think anarchy, they think chaos. That's what the capitalist system has attempted to generate. Successfully, if you ask me. Like, I think when people do hear anarchism, they don't think that there's actually a philosophy of thought behind it. I think they genuinely do think, just like riots is what anarchy inspires in the minds of people. Which, again, is like another reason why I'm a bit like, but communism has this problem as well, where the propaganda exists. So I just think that libertarianism gets into a bad spot because not only do you need to get through the propaganda, you also need to get through the fact that there's another group that also call themselves libertarians that are its opposite, right? Yeah, it was time for a big boy haircut. Yeah, exactly. The right thinks it's going the wrong way, so does the left. But it's because for the right, it isn't austere enough, and for the left, it's because of capitalism, yeah. Well, I mean, I'll always say this, Compton, like, I don't think the right actually has a critical analysis. Like, really, like, their and you can see it in their solutions, right? Their solutions is just buckle down and work, do capitalism harder, right? Like, they don't have a critical analysis. That they literally are saying things are going wrong because look, like, I can see it. Look, it's going wrong. And it's got to be that Trudeau, right? That's really what it is. But things have gotten so obviously bad that even the right is like, yeah, this is bad, right? So that's how obvious it's become. But when you get talking about causes and solutions, well, they don't actually have a critical analysis, right? They're not actually capable of engaging in it. And they're so incapable of engaging in it that when you do engage in it and actually start describing what's happening, they just go, that sounds like communism! That's communism! And the second you get into that conversation, it's so like, digging the right out of this hole is like gonna... They'll do fascism before they understand what's happening. That's what it really comes down to, right? They'll just turn into a bunch of thuggish orcs before they even begin to try to understand the concept of what's going on. Like, that's really where we're at. Fun fact, ANCAPs use the same colors, black and yellow, and the Black 100s were a paramilitary group that backed the Tsar. Nobody knows that, Watson. Nobody's sitting there with, like, the black and yellow being like, we're backing the Tsar. Like, come on. Anarchy is chaos. Sigma male music. Yeah. Hell yeah. It's time to kick ass and chew bubble gum. And I'm all out of gum. Murray Rothbard openly said right-wing co-opted the word libertarian from the left. The late 19th century anarchists were also called libertines. Yeah. And I'm in the group, and the ANCAP absolutely hate when I tell them they are not true anarchists. Yeah. But I was told fascism was a leftist ideology. Yeah, right. All right. Federal disapproval trending up. 38% approve of the performance of the federal government, unchanged from last month, with 46% disapproving for a net score of -8. The last time more approved than disapproved of the federal government was at the start of the year. Government approval, right? It's starting to climb upwards. Again, you've got 38% of the population basically gullible rubes, right? Like, Yeah, what the government's doing is great. It's super great that I go to a job that I hate to get paid not enough to basically survive, right? Super good. Yeah, absolutely love what the government's doing. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, Jesus Christ. Are you kidding me? So, current federal vote intentions. Conservatives are ahead. If an election were held now, the Liberals would win and secure 31% of the vote, 1 point less than their last election result, 2 points back of the Conservatives at 33%. Support for the NDP is at 19%, which is up 1. The People's Party, 4%, the Green Party, 4%, the Bloc Québécois, 35%. So voting intentions, like the Liberals and the Conservatives are essentially tied, right? Yeah, get another job! Your job doesn't owe you a livable wage. I'm a psychopath. Just die. Like, that's basically what these guys are saying. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. In British Columbia, we see a continuing three-way battle with the three main parties statistically tied. The Conservatives continue to hold wide leads in the prairies. The Liberals and Conservatives are statistically tied in Ontario, 35 to 36%, with the NDP in third at 20%. In Quebec, we have the Bloc Québécois and Liberals statistically tied, with the Bloc Québécois at 35%, the Liberals at 32%. So, vote intention, here's your breakdown by province and region. No surprises here, right? No surprises. It is as it is. I basically look at this mainly as just cultural opinions more than anything. Like, these three parties are the same party, as far as I'm concerned. Right? They work for the same people. They work towards the same goals. If the NDP suddenly were to take power, nothing would improve. It would be the same story, right? Like, we have to overthrow this. It's getting ridiculous. But it's good to know this information, just because, you know, there are cultural differences. Impressions of the leader. This one's actually a big deal. Like, Justin Trudeau has actually had a similar, like, he's been a very controversial leader, right? In by the numbers. You either really love this guy or really hate this guy, right? And actually, if you actually dig into the numbers, it's you actually think that he's okay, or you think he's a total piece of shit, right? That it's a vanishing minority of people who are like, Justin Trudeau's the greatest leader Canada's ever seen, right? That's a very, very small group. That if you're in this green line of positivity, you're probably more like, yeah, he's okay, I guess. Yeah, Justin Trudeau, he's okay, right? Whereas if you're in the red line, you're like, fuck this guy. This guy's a total loser, right? Which, hi, that would be me. Fuck this guy's a total loser. Basically just a dipshit with a stupid haircut, right? And every haircut he's ever had is stupid, by the way. He's a stupid guy, right? He has no vision for Canada. I genuinely think that Justin Trudeau is going to turn 80 and be like, wait a minute, I was the Prime Minister of Canada and I didn't do fucking anything? What the fuck? Like, for real. I think that's this guy's legacy, is going to be like, holy shit, I was literally the king of Canada and I did fuck all with it. I literally just gave money to rich cocksuckers who abandoned me the second I came out of office. Huh. Like, that's his legacy, dude. Like, it's going to be fucking really hilarious to see. But as you can see, trending upwards, right? 46, 47% compared to 35, 34%. And that has happened, right, over the course of this last year. Because for the most part, approval ratings usually were equal to one another for Justin Trudeau. Impression of Jagmeet Singh, right? Gone up, kind of stabilized, right? Up and of course, I think people are pissed off about the coalition deal, right? Propping up the Liberal government. What's hilarious about the NDP during this period of time is that they keep standing up and going, the Liberals are doing this! And I'm just like, every time, I'm like, yeah, you're voting with them. Like, what are you complaining about? And of course, this doesn't really matter that much, because Candice Bergen's not going to be there for much longer, but impression of Candice Bergen. People like her or don't hate her. So this is what's funny. People don't like her as much as they liked O'Toole, but they dislike her less than they disliked O'Toole. So it's like a bowl of porridge. That's really what it is. It's like a bowl of porridge. They're just like, whatever. Like, we know that we don't need to care about you, Bergen. You're not here for much longer, right? Yeah, she's like Umbridge, right? She's like Umbridge. Like that's kind of the figure that I compare her to. The conservative leadership election. So here's a fun one. Over the past few months, views of Mr. Poilievre have diverged. While his net score among conservative supporters has increased from 31 to 47 in a month, views among non-conservative party supporters have become more negative, with his net score going from negative 11 to negative 24. So this is impressions of Pierre Poilievre among CPC supporters, which at this moment is the only group that counts, right? These are the ones who are voting in the leadership convention, right? We have also seen an improvement in Jean Charest's personal numbers. Here they are pushing Jean Charest again, right? Among CPC supporters, his net score has improved from negative 3 to 19, thanks to a 13-point increase, those having a positive impression of him. So again, you can see, right? Negative views have gone down, positive views have gone up, right? So they're trying to make it a real horse race. Here's what's actually hilarious about this, okay? So, federal vote intention with Poilievre as CPC leader, okay? So, liberals, no change. Conservatives actually lose a little bit, right? Some small gains elsewhere, right? But check this out. If Charest is the CPC leader, Conservatives, negative 8. People's Party of Canada, plus 7. Basically, if Charest becomes the leader of the Conservative Party, all of the People's Party supporters will go to the People's Party and will abandon the Conservatives. And that will be the death knell for the Conservative Party. Like, you're looking at a party that's going to fracture and break up in big and significant ways if Jean Charest becomes the leader of the party. Which, if you're a liberal, is a huge win. If you're a conservative, is a disaster. According to Bruce Anderson, Canadians are not following politics closely right now, true. Instead, enjoying a summer with more flexibility to travel and mingle and relax. The economic, supply chain, air travel, and other pressures facing government are showing up in the numbers, but in a relatively muted form. Meanwhile, Conservatives seem more drawn to Mr. Poilievre this month, while other voters are feeling more alienated by his approach, highlighting the importance of the choice the Conservative Party seems ready to make. Not bothering not to talk about how, like, if Charest becomes the Conservative leader, it's a total fucking disaster. Like, it's a total fucking disaster for the Conservatives if Charest becomes the leader. Like, even if you like Charest, like, even if you're sitting there being like, you know what, I do like Jean Charest more than Poilievre. Well, look at the numbers, bud. What happens? What happens? Right? If you get Charest in there and Charest becomes the leader, your party is doomed. Your party is fucking doomed if you do that. Right? According to David Coletto, despite every increasing inflation, rising interest rates, and a souring public mood, political opinions and intention remains relatively stable. The Liberals and Conservatives are holding on to much of the support from last year's election. Although views of Mr. Trudeau have become more negative, views of Mr. Poilievre have become more polarized. He's well liked by Conservative supporters, but increasingly unpopular among everyone else. These two trends lead us to the stalemate that has gripped Canadian politics for many years now and is unlikely to change as long as both primary candidates for Prime Minister are as polarizing as Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Poilievre, and that's by design. Right? That's by design. Like, if I'm the oligarchy, I want Canadian politics to be completely stalemated and calcified and just, like, ground in. I don't want a leader to get in there that's actually going to be like, hey, wait a minute. There's an oligarchy. We should do something about the oligarchy. I absolutely don't want that. Right? I want everything to grind down. I like things as they are because I'm benefiting. Why would I want anybody to come in with any kind of message of change or any of that kind of shit? No, fuck that. I've never had any success in convincing someone that we're heading towards fascism, and that's much worse than their irrational hate of communism and socialism. Yeah, brick wall. Yeah. If you can't convince them that we're heading towards fascism at this point, I mean, for God's sakes, like, come on, I had a good poll, real good poll. Yeah. Half of Americans anticipate a U.S. Civil War soon. Like, come on, guys. Like we're dealing with true baby brains at this point. If you're sitting there being like, this is fine. What, Canadian politics? Yeah, it's a bit, yeah, but this is fine. You're dealing with a baby brain. Like, baby brain. Literally, like, like, cannot be trusted with basic stuff. Right? Like, if I was talking to a guy and he was dead convinced that, like, oh, it's not fat, you guys say everything is wrong, I wouldn't trust them to tie their shoes. Like, I wouldn't trust them with anything. I wouldn't leave them alone with my dog for 10 minutes. Like, yeah. Violence can seem to be everywhere in the United States. Political violence is in the spotlight, with the 6th January 2021 insurrection as Exhibit A. Now, a large study confirms 1 in 5 Americans believe violence motivated by political reasons is, at least sometimes, justified. Nearly half expect a civil war. Many say they would trade democracy for a strong leader. A preprint posted on IV found. This is not a study that's meant to shock, said Rachel Kleinfeld, a political violence expert at Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, who is not involved with the research. But it should be shocking. Firearm deaths in the United States grew by nearly 43% between 2010 and 2020. A gun sales surged during the coronavirus pandemic. Garen Wintemute, an emergency medicine physician and longtime gun violence researcher at the University of California, Davies, wondered what those trends portend for civil unrest. Sometimes being an ER doc is like being the bowman in the Titanic going, look at the iceberg, he says. He and his colleagues surveyed more than 8,600 adults in English and Spanish about their views on democracy in the United States, racial attitudes in the U.S. society, and their own attitudes towards political violence. The respondents were part of the Ipsos Knowledge Panel, an online research panel that has been used widely, including by Wintemute for research on violence and firearm ownership. The team then applied statistical methods to extrapolate the survey results to the entire country. Although almost all respondents thought it's important for the United States to remain a democracy, about 40% said having a strong leader is more important. Half expect a civil war in the United States in the next few years. The survey didn't specify when. The fact that basically half the country is expecting a civil war is just chilling, Wintemute says, and many expect to take part. If found in a situation where they think violence is justified to advance an important political objective, about 1 in 5 respondents thinks they will likely be armed with a gun. About 7% of participants, which would correspond to about 18 million U.S. adults, said they would be willing to kill a person in such a situation. Kleinfeld says the study's findings are compelling because of the large number of participants and because it asked about specific scenarios in which participants think violence is justified, such as for self-defense or to stop people with different political beliefs from voting. The sample does slightly overrepresent older people who are not known to commit much violence worldwide, she said. So the fact that you're still getting these high numbers is really quite concerning. She is less alarmed by the shaky support for democracy, noting that political gridlock, as in U.S. politics today, can often distort attitudes. What people mean by democracy is pretty fuzzy, she says. Political paralysis, she adds, can quickly lead people who think, yeah, I like democracy, to also say, yeah, I want a strong man in leadership. The findings are scary, but not surprising. Kurt Badrick, who studies the psychology of extremist communication at American University, wrote in an email to Science. In recent years, he says, the United States has seen an increase in individual willingness to engage in violence. Homicides in cities increased 44% between 2019 and 21. For instance, an attitude, he says, is likely to spill into the political sphere. Researchers have criticized the sampling and survey methodology of previous studies, yabba, yabba, yabba. Let's get down to it. To reduce the threat of political violence, Badrock says, the first step is to call out the disinformation online, the right-wing media, some of which is taken directly from extremist propaganda. Don't improve the material conditions of the citizenry. Fuck that, right? We need to call out what it is, right? Regulating social media, right? To avoid incendiary misinformation from starting, so get people like me off the platforms. right? Don't improve the quality of life for the citizenry. Forget that, right? Kleinfeld adds that leaders from political and media personalities to church pastors can make a difference. Experiments show courageous leaders can deter their communities from engaging in violence. Yeah, now is the time to take this seriously and not put our heads in the sand, right? Like, unlike you guys. Like, I love that these guys can look at this and be like, oh wow, there's a rising violence while poverty and homelessness are spreading, right? Improve the material conditions of the communities. Give your money to the poor, right? This is real basic shit. Speaking of giving your money to the poor, sorry guys. Yeah, welcome back. Sorry guys, I hate to do it, but I promised myself I would. What are you guys talking about here? Yeah, this is why the NDP needs to cooperate with the Greens and prepare a real left-leaning alliance. Yeah, we also need more unions and communist parties. That's absolutely true. And also, demand better. Let's be straight. We need to surround the halls of power. Like, we need protest movements at this point. There's no two ways about it. Like, if we don't actually get people into the streets, if we don't actually get people meeting face-to-face and organizing with one another face-to-face, right? If we don't actually do politics on the street, right? Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. I know, and Milo agrees. Milo, buddy, you're a good boy. What's going on? What's going on? Yes, I know. Yes, I know. I know some old school conservatives who like Shrey and want to return to the Mulrooney type of con. Yeah, so they just admit that they're trying to betray the populace and destroy the society, right? Like, imagine actually saying out loud, I want to go back to the Mulrooney years. Like, Mulrooney, he betrayed every Canadian that exists. Like, there's no two ways about it. Like, he was the guy who, during the Thatcher era and the Reagan era, essentially eviscerated the Canadian economy, destroyed the Conservative Party, literally down to 2 seats. Like, that's how thick the betrayal was. So this idea that we're going to go back, like, you're outright admitting that your goal is to destroy Canada and everybody in it, right? That's what you're admitting out loud. So it's shocking that people would evoke the name of Brian Mulroney, this fraudulent loser from a dead era. Like, unbelievable to me. The fact that PPC types think Skippy is their guy tells you all you need to know about the reactionary nature of the Conservative Party going forward. Yep, that's exactly right. I bet the people who will start the Civil War will be conservative, just like it was conservative who started the American Civil War. I mean, I think we're just going to see a spiraling, right? That it's just going to be violence on violence on violence on violence on violence, and it'll just be this spiral downward. Tell them the Confederacy was essentially a forerunner to the Nazi Party in Germany. Yeah, want to talk about baby brain? Yeah. We must purge the Xenos and the heretics and the traitors for the good God Emperor. Exactly. But, John, I legit, like, the more we talk about Warhammer, the more I actually do think that, like, Warhammer is going to become a very prominent part of the culture soon, right? I was thinking about this all yesterday as we were talking about it, that, like, I've been saying for a while now that, like, media is going to become more and more explicitly fascist, right? That the violence that existed in media previously was still kind of rooted in this, like, we're the saviors coming to eradicate an illegitimate. Although, I mean, there was always this idea that they were doing it for good reasons, or something like Rambo, where he was like, violence is bad but sometimes necessary, right? Like, but the Warhammer ethos is it's fascism, right? And it was previously, like, it's satire, right? The Warhammer universe is satire, but when it becomes more prominent in the culture, people won't see it satirically, right? They will very much just embrace the fascist nature of it, and it will be just seen as cool, right? Oh shit! Yeah, this is madness. This is Sparta. Oh shit! You give some old disgruntled people with hardened ideologies the opportunity to be violent, they'll show up armed and dangerous in the state. Yeah, for sure. So better bourgeoisie propaganda. Well, I mean, but eventually it's not even gonna, like, they're not even gonna try. Right? They're not even going to try to pretend like they're good. Like, this is something that I think is going to really shock people. that they're not really going to know what to make of it or what to do with it, which is that the fascist propaganda that's coming is not going to try to convince you that they're good. They're very much going to be like, you're with us or against us, right? Like, if you think we're bad, we don't care, we will kill you. And they'll just be unapologetic about it, like straight up. Like, you're gonna try to do like the classic sort of liberal poo-pooing, right, or any of that kind of stuff, and they're gonna be like, fuck you, bang, right? They don't care. Like, they are just not going to care, and the populace is not prepared for that. They're not prepared for the type of hard-nosed militant violence that is going to come out of the populace in big and serious ways. And you're going to see, like, liberal types are basically just going to capitulate to it because they're too weak to do anything else, right? Yeah, we need not first past the post. I mean, we need not this system. This system is an obvious and overt failure, which is why I say we need to surround the halls of power and redraw our constitution. Like, it clearly doesn't work. Like, obviously. We're heading towards a total apocalypse. I don't know why people pretend as though this system can work, right? It's like you're driving a car that the wheels already fell off of, and the only reason it's moving forward is because there's momentum. And while you're like pointlessly moving the wheel, the steering wheel, because the vehicle's just moving forward without the wheels in the first place, you're thinking to yourself, when this thing slows down, I'd be better off in a vehicle without wheels, right? But it's heading towards a cliff, and all you can actually do is attempt to bail, right? That's all you can actually attempt to do, right? Stop like moving the wheel pointlessly, going, oh, why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? It's not working because the wheels are off. Right? It's over. The only reason you're moving forward is because of the momentum in the first place. It's hurtling towards a cliff, right? But you sitting there and saying, like, oh, well, if this thing was slowed down, it would be better, and then we could reform it, is completely pointless, right? Like, yes, you're technically correct. If we reformed the system, it would be better, but the system's not capable of being reformed. It's a car off the wheels, hurtling towards a cliff. You gotta bail. There's no solution. There's no other solution. You gotta bail, right? And how do you bail in this society under these conditions, right? Where we're hurtling towards a cliff, completely out of control and off the rails. You got to surround the halls of power. There's no alternative. There's nothing else to do. Everything else is pointless bullshit into the wind. There's literally nothing else that matters, and everything else that you're doing that you think matters doesn't. Like, it's unbelievable to watch the liberalization of the society during this period of time. That people who should be pushing groups into the streets to surround the halls of power are instead just vote harder. Just vote harder. We got to convince people to vote harder. It's utterly deluded. Like, we're utterly deluded at this point. And when the wildfires sweep through our towns, what, we just gonna vote harder? Like, it's crazy. It's crazy what we're doing. Yeah, did you know that Europe burns? Yeah, damn, tough break, right? The ecclesity is the perfect example of the religious right, and there is the CIA, which is the Inquisition. Yeah, that's actually true. Like, the CIA is it's gonna operate very much like an Inquisition, right? Like, they're already the largest terrorist organization on the planet. Like, they're already this just, like, horrific, ghoulish terrorist organization. So them switching into an inquisitor role is going to be very easy for them, right? They just need funny outfits. That's all. Hey, Anemone, how you doing? I hope you're doing well out there, man. I hope you're doing well out there. I've noticed that you're quieter than usual, and that unsettles me. I hope you're doing okay. Really. Technically, it's a theocratic oligarchy in 40K. I mean, so like America. And a dictatorship in 30K. But yeah, we're heading for a grim dark. I just want a commissar, mama, and a chain gun blade. Yeah, dude. Let's go. Let's get Majorie Tyler Greene with like a chainsaw hand, right? She's almost there. Yeah, suffering from capitalism as usual. Yeah. Yeah. It's getting to be like comically absurd now, isn't it? Like, how do you even make art about it? How do you even make parody and satire of this? How do you even, like, we are to a point now where, like, just pointing at it is the art. Like, literally take this headline, put it there, and just have someone point at it. And that's the art. Because it's so fucking absurd at this point. There's nothing that can actually be said. Like, it's so slapping you in the face. And the people who are denying its existence are so like, they're the only people that you could do art about. Just literally somebody like, everything is fine. One of these 33 or 34% of people, whatever, who actually think everything is fine. Right? What are you talking about? I approve of what the government is doing right now. You know, everything's totally fine. What are you talking about? You just gotta go get a job, you know? You just gotta go get a job and everything will be better and everything will be fine for you, you know? Or like this Peterson brain, right? It's like, you gotta stand up and clean your bedroom. If you clean your bedroom harder, that'll stop the sun from burning down your cities. We'll see who burns down who, right? Like, it's just like fucking baby brain dumb bullshit at this point. While these detached, deluded morons pretend as though anything they say matters, right? Like, it's not gonna stop the sun. Like, none of it matters. It's just deluded baby brain bullshit. Ugh. There was another shooting 2 days ago, yeah. Then at the vigil, there was another shooting in Indiana. Oy. JP denies climate. Yeah, he does. Look straight up. He went on Joe. Like, that was the moment when, if you were still giving Peterson the benefit of the doubt, or if you were still saying he wasn't a dangerous voice or any of that kind of stuff, that's the moment it ended. The moment he went on Joe Rogan's podcast and did this climate change denialism stuff. That's the moment he revealed himself to be a complete and total fraud. Like, no, you cannot have intelligence and deny that climate change exists. Straight up. You're a dangerous figure. And if people are following you, they are also dangerous or deluded. There isn't an alternative position, right? Like, if you're going to sit there and say, like, that fucking dumbest shit, like, you can't actually say anything about climate, because when you say climate, you're saying everything. Oh. Like, Peterson says this a lot. He says this about communists, and he says this about climate change, which is essentially what he's saying is that because the subject is too difficult for him to understand, no one else can understand it. That's essentially his position. That he's too stupid to understand it, and so nobody else can. Like, and it's a difficult subject, and so no one should do the work on it. Like, it's as baby-brained as you can get. And that's essentially his position. Yeah, I have 2 jobs. Yeah, exactly, dude. Like, it doesn't matter. If you say I have 2 jobs, they'll just say get a better job, right? Like, we're dealing with fascists here. Like, they're not talking to find a resolution. They're talking to confuse and frustrate you. That's what it is. That if they can't physically kill you, they want your life to be hell. Like, that's what we're dealing with here. Like, we're dealing with people who genuinely want this place to become a hellscape. Like, and that is their position at this point. Hegel remarks somewhere that all great world historical fact and personage occurs, as it were, twice. He has forgotten to add the first time as tragedy, the second as farce. Yeah, no kidding, right? Why are we still listening to an idiot with a theology PhD? His PhD is not in theology. His PhD is in sociology. But he is a fundamentalist Christian. Like, yeah, like, there's all kinds of things that you can point out for Peterson. Like, the guy holds on to a book. Like, the Bible is the foundational truth of all Western civilization. It's the foundation for all truth. Well, the book says give your money to the poor. Right? It says it right in there. You can find it. It's easy. It's easy to find. Read one gospel. You don't need to read the whole fucking thing. Read one gospel. Like, this is why I say over and over and over and over and over again, man. Like, everybody's got to read the Bible. Everyone's got to read the Bible, right? At least one gospel. At least one gospel. Pick a gospel. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Pick one, right? Read it. and you're going to find out instantly. And not even like a big analysis. Like literally you just have to do like a cursory, like a speed read of it. You don't need to fall in love with Jesus or anything. You just need to basically just get the information in your eyes. And you're going to realize instantaneously that these people are frauds. Like complete and total frauds based on their own literature. Right? I said psychology, didn't I? I said sociology. You're right. I think I meant psychology. You know what? You're right. Time for Southern Minister Peterson. Yeah, that's what he wants. Like, he wants a little kooky cult. That's what he wants. He wants a little church somewhere. That's really what he wants. Like, Peterson wants to make a little doomsday cult. That's what he wants. Right? He wants his waning years to just be surrounded by deluded people who are heralding in the second coming of Christ. That's what he wants. Yeah, the fact that he has a poli-sci degree is even more embarrassing. Yeah. I had a very interesting character randomly tell me today that he was a flat earther who read the Bible many times and that finding religion got him to stop being gay. That is an interesting character, dude. Wow. Dude. Well, I mean, and the fact that he has a poli-sci degree, what that tells you is that, like, literally anybody can get anything, right? Like, you don't need to actually know anything to get a degree, right? They'll give a PhD to anybody, right? Like, there's no standards, right? There's no standards whatsoever. Like, I've got a poli-sci degree, which is why I think why I think capitalism's the greatest system, right? Yeah, that person, yeah, that person requires psychiatric evaluation. Like a flat earther. First of all, if you're saying that you're a flat earther, like, there's a difference between being like, oh, flat earther stuff. Like, there's something there. Like, let's have some kooky conversations about my favorite flat earther theory is that Antarctica is actually an ice wall. I love that. I feel like that's a very clever thing that they did in terms of the flat earther thing. But if you're actually a believer of the flat earth stuff, you're essentially saying, don't trust me with anything. Like, don't trust me with anything, right? Like, I don't know how to discern between reality and what's real and what's false. I don't know the difference between, like, a dumb bullshit kind of conspiracy kooky thing and reality. That's essentially what you're saying. And so, like, you're telling me that this guy who thinks the earth is flat read the Bible and his conclusion was don't be gay. Like, bro, yeah, there's a lot going on there. There's a lot to unpack there. I already worship Doom Guy. And yet I face incredible barriers to obtaining a PhD, yeah. Man. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Because your writing is good, Anemone. Like, your writing is good. Like, they don't want to give you a PhD because they don't want to give a PhD to somebody who's actually spitting the truth the way that you do. Like, that to me is the actual truth of it. Like, if you were writing about, like, identity issues, or if you were writing about how capitalism is actually good, right, they'd throw a PhD at you. But because you're actually writing about how, like, the system is in decay and is actually falling apart, right? Well, they are gonna throw barriers in your way, right? Because you're telling the truth about it. I'm on Facebook page called Shit Creationists Say. Yeah, it's all flat earth, Bible thumper, lunacy. Dude, how is flat eartherism getting in to the creationist movement? That to me seems very odd. Like, creationism, like, when I was growing up and going through fundamentalist Christianity, flat eartherism was not part of creationism. Like, creationism was very, and when I was I was taught evolution. Like, I was taught evolutionary theory, and there was always this sense, even when I look back on it, that, like, no, science is science, and we're paying attention to the science, but it was linked in to, like, so evolution was the tool that God used, is sort of where they landed, right? But it looks like it's regressed in many ways. It looks like it's regressed, that now they're not even bothering with it, right? Isn't that right, Milo? They're not even bothering with it anymore. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? I think he was homeless, yeah. But his initial way to talk to me was to make sure I was aware he lived in one of the buildings next to mine. Oh, yeah, okay. Flat Earth would make good science fiction story. Are you familiar with Ringworld? Yeah, Ringworld. That's Terry Pratchett's stuff, right? Terry Pratchett's brilliant. Like, he's brilliant. Like, I often say that I struggle with reading fiction because I find it to be way less interesting than what's going on in the world. But Terry Pratchett's like one of the exceptions. Him and Stephen King both seem to be able to keep my attention and keep me going on. The Bible has a flat Earth description? Does it? I don't know about that, Eric. I bet you this is one of these things where it's like you've got to interpret it as a flat Earth, according to the Bible. Sigma Rule 69, just say yes, sir. Yeah. Creationism had the ice canopy hypothesis that they use to explain the global flood. Okay. Because they seem to have become biblical literalists, and the firmament is basically a large ceiling over the earth. Yeah, these are also the Christo-fascist types, for sure. Well, and the biblical literalism, like, the thing that I find so interesting about this era of biblical literalists is that even their historical theologians would be shocked by that. They would be shocked by that. That like, what, you read a book with magic in it and you thought that it was real? What the fuck? Like, they would really, really, I think, be blown away by this idea that people are walking around being like, and then Jesus Christ walked on the water and raised the dead for real. I think people would, I really do think that Christian theologians of yore, like Augustus, Aquinas, these kinds of guys, would legitimately be like, oh, like, you're fucking Looney Tunes, like you're out to lunch, because there's always been an understanding in the theology that, yeah, obviously this shit didn't really happen this way, but theologians generally don't, like, it didn't matter, you know? Like, I think that's the thing that people don't really understand about how theologians and theology worked for a long, long time, which is that it ties into this conversation we have about, like, did Jesus even exist, right? Was he a literal figure that literally existed? And the response of any theologian would actually be, that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter at all. Who cares? Like, it's completely pointless that if Christ was or was not really existent or really alive, right? It didn't matter at all. Like, what matters is the energy that's put into it. What matters is the spiritual contemplation. That Christ as a figure matters more than whether or not he was real or not. Like, legit, who cares? Like, who gives a fuck at all? And like, even if you did prove it beyond the shadow of a doubt that Christ did not exist, well, then all you're basically saying is you can make a fictional character and have him be the most important figure in Western civilization for 2,000 years, right? Like, isn't that important? Doesn't that matter? This happens all the fucking time, dude. Like, how many times do I need to be just like people will show you something that is shocking, that is incredible to think about, and they just present it to you as in this, like, dismissive, just like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. Like the placebo effect. Every single time somebody presents to me a study or something and there's, like, the placebo effect is involved, like, when I was a kid, I was like, wait, time out, hold on. So you're actually saying that someone can take something that is meaningless, it doesn't affect them at all, but because they believe it does, it actually works? And the scientists will be like, yeah, it's called the placebo effect. And I'm like, so you can wish yourself to be healed? And, like, the scientists will be like, yeah, I suppose. Just sorry about this line of questioning. So why aren't we, like, studying the shit out of that? Like, humans literally can just imagine themselves to be better and imagine themselves to be healed, and we call it the placebo effect and then just toss it away. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Right? And I feel the same thing about this conversation, where it's just like, oh, so Christ doesn't exist, but the story of Christ has been the most influential story ever written. So that seems to matter, right? That seems to matter. The nocebo effect. I'm that sounds familiar to me. Nocebo. Harmless substance of treatment when taken, associated with harmful, worsening symptoms. Yeah, so you could it works the opposite way, right? The placebo effect is that you heal yourself, and the nocebo effect is that you hurt yourself, right? Yeah, I think that's right. We really are space orcs, right? Who the hell is Dr. Squatch? Get the shit out of here. I know that's the ads you guys are watching. Well, the only Bible that's worth reading is the King James version with the Apocrypha with the 80 books. Well, when they initially, the Gutenberg Bible was initially, they had all 3 languages. So they had the Greek, the Sumerian, and the no, it was the Greek, the Latin, and the English, right? And they did that so that you could, like, because they understood that translation matters, right? Where we don't really do that anymore. It doesn't matter. Christ lived to a theologian. That's a historian's job, not his department. But even the historian should be like, yeah, like it doesn't actually matter if Christ did or did not exist. Like, clearly this figure has had an impact. Like, you've got entire groups going around. And I think about that in terms of, like, you guys keep talking about the flat earth stuff, right? Like, it clearly doesn't matter to them whether it's real or not, right? Like, the flat earth stuff, to me, is a hard rejection of the secular scientific world, right? It's just a statement that we don't, that we are rejecting, like, because it fundamentally doesn't matter, right? Like, if you're a fucking dumb monkey idiot living in, like, Oregon, right, walking around doing stuff, it doesn't matter. It fundamentally does not change your life. Right? You're so small, and you're so tiny, and you're so insignificant. It completely doesn't matter if you're living on a flat Earth or a round Earth. It straight up doesn't. So what you're doing, if you're saying I think this flat Earth stuff, is that you're fundamentally rejecting the secular scientific community, right? That you're saying to the universities, right? You're saying to these institutions, you're saying, fuck you, I don't buy it. I'm not going with that narrative. I'm going with this other narrative, right? And the fact that that narrative is being adopted by Christian creationists really sort of fuels this, right? That it's not about being scientifically factual. It's about rejecting someone culturally. It's about finding a new community and finding a new culture and being in that new community and that new culture and rejecting this, right? That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing. I love that, like, I've started putting the ads in because I would like to eat, and the result of that is robust conversations in the chat about the ads. I think that that's basically hilarious, because it shows you instantaneously that ads work, right? Shows you instantaneously that ads worked. Like, I thought that it was going to be like I'd put the ads in and then you guys would be like, and then you like click the skip button or whatever, get back into the chat, and then we would continue on. But what happens is that the ad intersects with the chat, right? So it shows me in real time that propaganda works, right? Because something that is completely irrelevant to what we're doing here, outside of please give me money, like please let me be able to pay rent, please let this work so that this is the thing that I can actually do, that I can actually be a guy who plans protests, who puts protests forward, who becomes someone who can actually gather people together to organize to be a politically active person. Please let this become my full-time job, where money comes from YouTube ads and from Patreon and from all of that. Like, please let me be able to eat while everything is going on and ridiculous. And the result of that has been, now I gotta find out who this Dr. Squatch guy is. Dr. Squatch, clean yo balls. Fantastic. Fucking fantastic. There are many atheist scholars, like Bert Ehrman, who demonstrate that Jesus was indeed a historical figure, but the miracle stuff cannot be proven as historical events. But that's fairly common, you know? Like, there are a lot of stories of historical figures doing magical shit. Because, like, we live in a what's thought of as a post-Enlightenment world, where we created this sort of understanding of the world in a very material sort of sense, right? So we had to prove it scientifically, and we've gotten into that kind of mindset of things need to be proven scientifically to be true. But that ethos didn't exist for most of civilization. That there is something of an understanding that, like, these guys aren't actually doing magic, right? But nobody actually cared. Nobody was walking around being like, you know, that guy didn't actually do that magic, you know? Like, nobody cared. Like, it's a sweet story that kicks ass, right? Like William Wallace in Braveheart, right? Talking about, like, shooting lightning bolt out of his arse and all this kind of shit, right? Like, it's just cool stories to tell, right? You're just telling awesome stories about people you like. I don't know if there's anything fundamentally wrong with that. Dr. Squatch is a decent soap company, but their competitors are a bit bigger in bars and a few dollars cheaper. Conton. Duke Cannon is a perfectly acceptable boutique soap company for men. Here we go. We got counter advertising happening in the chat. The book of Flavius Josephus proves that Jesus guy existed. See, there you go. He did justify, who are we talking about here with he? He did justify some books of Enoch and a passage of God creating the world and separating the water from above and below, making the sky or something. That was proof, this is that stuff, that the earth was flat. Yeah, like, somebody wrote something down one time and I believed it. Like Russell Crowe in Waterworld. Okay, buddy. You're a good boy. You're a good boy. My little dog's losing his little mind. Losing his little mind. Alright, let's get rid of this. Oh yeah, here's a great article. Right? This is from Better Dwelling. Canadian cities have seen up to 1 in 8 newly built homes go to non-residents. Just literally people who don't even live here. Just, like, picking up housing. Right? Like, the whole market. The whole market. And we're seeing we're seeing a phenomenon now where, like, oh, the prices went down. The prices went down, and of course, what's that doing? That is, okay, buddy, you're gonna be like this. You're gonna be like this. You're gonna be like this. Up you come. Oh, my little man. You're gonna be like this. You're gonna be like this. You're gonna be whining at me. You're gonna be sucking at me. Then we get to do a little bit of a Milo pet break. Milo pet break. Milo, isn't it just great? He's a little dog with a face like a frog. He's a little dog with a face like a frog. He growls at me. He doesn't know what's going on at all. He's Milo Pants. Yeah, he's Milo Pants. Yeah. He's a little dog with a dumb little tongue. He just loves everyone. Milo, he's a good dog. Yeah. How's that for a show? How's this for quality entertainment right here? What does this even look like right now? Oh yeah. You guys are getting the show. Okay, buddy. Down you go. Down you go, my little guy. So, one of the phenomenons that we're starting to see is housing prices went down, but all that's done is it's made people remove their house from the market. Oh, I had an article here for this. That people are just pulling their listings, right? Because what people are not understanding about what's gone on in the housing market is that the rich who own this housing can just keep the housing, right? They'll just keep it. And the price that they were setting, at the ridiculous rate that they were setting it at, was the price that they were willing to exchange the housing currency they have, right, for a national currency, right? Like, this is what people are not understanding in this conversation. That the rich do not view housing as a commodity. They do not view it as something that people are using for a purpose, right? They're not viewing it that way. They are exclusively viewing it as if it is a currency itself, right? That to them it's no different than like gold, treasury bonds, housing. It's on that kind of a level, right? It's not like food. It's not like clothing. It's not like a consumable luxury good or something, right? It's not an item that they think, they think about this way. It's exclusively just a form of money for them. And so when the market goes down, because the interest rates went up or whatever, which is what people are trying to say that it is, but I think that that's kind of bullshit. But so when the pricing goes down, or when the general market goes down, when the attitude of the buyer is such that they are saying, I'm not going to buy it at that price, well, then the rich are just taking the item and saying, fine, I'll keep it, right? Like, the only resolution to this actually is to just stop this, is to nationalize the housing market, is to say to these rich cocksuckers, this isn't a currency for you, right? This isn't an investment opportunity for you, right? You're not allowed to turn this into an investment opportunity. That this is our housing. This is what we need to survive and live. Like, get completely fucked. Get completely fucked. And that's the only way it's going to solve itself. And are we doing that? No. Like, we're definitely not doing that. Yeah, they basically have unlimited money when you compare it against regular people, so they can wait or buy more or do whatever the crap they like to improve the situation instead of losing anything. And to really put a point on it here, because I don't understand why people aren't getting this. It doesn't matter to them if they sell it. It does not matter to them that the price that they were putting on it at that extravagant level was just what they were willing to accept to trade the currency, right? Like they have billions of dollars. They don't need dollars, right? So if they're going to trade for dollars, well, they're going to trade for a lot of dollars because they already have the thing that has the real intrinsic value, which is the land. And so they don't actually need to engage in the trade. That's the thing that people are not understanding about this situation, right? It's not like they're sitting there being like, oh, I got this thing and I need to hustle around and find somebody, oh, you want this? Okay, and they're like, they're not wheeling and dealing, right? They're not like in negotiations. They're not like, okay, we got to do all, they literally have taken the house, thrown it onto the pile of wealth that they have, like a fucking hoarded dragon, And you are coming to them and going, please, sir, I would like a house, sir, please. And they have gone, well, I suppose that I could part with one of my many houses for, all you worthless peasants have is more gold, and I have piles and piles of gold. I don't need any more gold, but if that's the thing that you're willing to trade it for, I could part for, I don't know, 100 million gold pieces, I suppose. And the peasants have gone, well, that's too much. I'm not going to pay that. To which the fucking dragon has said, well then fine, go away, I don't care. And then they just turn around and look at their pile of gold. Like, there's no fucking negotiation happening here. Like, there's no goddamn, like, oh no, the prices went down, I'll be forced to, like, they're not forced to sell. There's no mechanism in place to force these guys to sell. Right? So it doesn't matter to them. And if you raise interest rates, that doesn't matter to them. It's not like they took out a loan to get these houses. They have $100 billion. They own the house. Right? They own it. And the property taxes on it are so pointlessly, worthlessly low. And many communities literally say, oh, well, if the place is empty, then we won't tax it. Right? That's happening down here in the beaches. That if the place is empty, it doesn't get taxed. Right? So there's literally no incentive to move it. You literally can just sit on it and be like, well, it's mine. I'm going to have it now. Right? Which is exactly what's happening. And yet people are acting as though, oh, the prices are coming down, so that means things will actually change. No. None of that's going to change. Like, none of that's going to change. Right? And watch what happens. So literally the only reason the price has come down at all is because there's a small group of people in the conversation that are willing to part with their stuff for a slightly lower price. But guess who they're going to sell to? Right? Guess who they're going to sell to? They're going to sell it to the billionaires. And what's going to happen? It's going to ratchet back up. Right? So it's going to do that ratcheting effect, right? It's going to go down 10%. Everyone's going to be like, oh, prices came down so far. Then it's going to go back up 30%. Everyone's going to go, brrr. It's going to go back down 10% from there. And everyone's going to go, oh, the prices came back down again. Everything's fine. Because we're all so fucking stupid. And we just keep buying into this dumb nonsense. Meanwhile, we literally know what's happening. Like, they're buying it. And now you got BlackRock coming in. And now you got all these guys coming in. Like, it's over, kids. Like, it's over. Right? Like, the game of Monopoly has happened. You can't afford it. That's the long and short of it. Like, and yet you still go to work and do these stupid jobs. Why? For what? To what end? For what purpose? To gain what? It blows my mind that we have to argue that food and shelter are basic human rights. Yeah, if you believe that, you're a radical who wants to destroy the economy. I mean, I am a radical who wants to destroy the economy. I think the economy should be destroyed. I think our response to people who say, you want to destroy the economy, should be yes. Because I think the people who are defending this economy are either completely deluded or like, completely evil. Like, this economy should be destroyed. It's literally generating poverty, homelessness, and a straight-up apocalypse. Like a straight-up apocalypse. When people say, we need to protect the economy. Like when these liberals say, oh, well, we can't do that or else we'll destroy the economy, right? Like when they say that, to me it sounds no different than like, oh, we can't do that. That would hurt Voldemort. Oh, well, we can't do that. The devil would not appreciate that. Like, that's where I'm at. Like, well, we can't do that. The demonic, satanic, evil demons that own this place, that would mean that the vampires would get less child blood. That's what it sounds like to me when these guys start saying, like, oh, we got to protect the economy. We got to do what we can to save the economy, right? We got to make sure that the soul suckers get more souls. We got to ensure that the mind flayers keep enslaving people. Like, that's what I'm hearing. I don't know about you guys, but like this idea that we're supposed to be defensive somehow. Like, I hate it when I see that. When people are like, you want to destroy the economy, and people go, well, no, I actually think that, like, fuck you. Yes, absolutely, I would like to destroy this economy. It's like listening to a Southern slaver say, if you make slavery illegal, it'll destroy the economy. Which they did say, by the way. Right? Fuck your economy. Your economy should be fucked. Get fucked, you slaving lunatics. You're literally destroying the planet so you can drive around a big truck. Like, it's so fucking ridiculous. Destroy the economy. Fuck your economy. Unbelievable. Yeah, they probably have security systems in the homes to make sure no one uses it, of course. Adam, non-soap joke. If y'all got eczema or psoriasis, I started using apple cider vinegar soap from the Soap Works and have noticed a very significant improvement. Down with BlackRock. That's all right. An odd way to finish that statement, but I appreciate it, dude. And you know what? Letting people know how to deal with eczema or psoriasis, good for you, Adam. That is solidarity building right there. Down with BlackRock. Stupid Baldur's Gate 3 still in early access. It's all about the Mind Flayers. I want to play already. Oh my god. I know, dude. I appreciate that. Video games. Video games. I went through a period of time where I was like feeling bad about playing video games, and now I'm just like, fuck it. Like, find whatever tiny enjoyment you can find in the world. If the powers that be wanted us to actually meaningfully engage with the system, they'd make it more interesting, and not so fucking hellish. I find arguing with folks who are right-wing is totally pointless endeavor. If someone accuses me of wrecking the economy with left-wing ideas, I'm out. Find someone closer. F the economy. Up your butt. Yeah. Like, fuck your economy. Like, fuck your slave-based economy. Like, it's so fucking brutal. I know, Anemone. I'm allowed to have fun. I'm allowed to have fun. I know. Bertolt Brecht had a really good statement, which is, time wasted enjoying oneself is not wasted time. Yeah. It's true, dude. It's true. It's just that it's that capitalist propaganda. It's that grind set, right? You could be doing something more productive. Why aren't you making money right now? You know? And it's literally like, why am I not trying to make money right now? Because I don't want to destroy the society. Like, I don't want to destroy the civilization. Like, at this point, like, the jobs that we should be trying to find, and maybe this is something I should take on board for myself, but like, the jobs we should be trying to find should be jobs that exclusively and explicitly fight climate change. Everyone should quit their jobs and find these sorts of jobs. Like, if you're not confronting climate change in your work, right, then you should change your job, right? And like, for a long time I've been okay with the kind of capitalist work I've been doing, because the place that I work is actually very, very conscientious of these things, right? Everything is locally sourced. Everything is organic. They're making constant decisions to eliminate waste, to lower the amount of impact that they have in terms of their climate change footprint. And so I feel good in that, but they're not. It's still just a cafe, right? They're not actually an active thing that's actively confronting climate change. And yeah, exactly. There aren't that many jobs that tackle climate change, since capitalism doesn't care about that. Yeah. That's exactly the truth. Like, capitalism doesn't actually give a fuck. Not really. John, you mispronounced how I spelled economy. Idiocracy, am I right? You got me, Adam. You got me, dude. You're right, man. I gotta be more thorough, right? F the economy. Up your butt. Perfect. I like Mario Kart and games like that, but it gets boring after kicking so much butt. Waiting for a Tracy Jordan-style porn video game before I get to the next generation. That shit's coming, dude. That shit's absolutely coming. For real. Like, capitalism will for sure, as this whole thing goes into a big decline, it will for sure respond by just like doing like an A-level kind of game, but just like full of porn. They're for sure gonna do it. Gotta make our own self-sufficient community from scratch, our own economy from scratch. All of it again without the reliance on evil corpos. I mean, I talk to my brother about this sometimes, and he's been involved in politics for a long time, and he points out that like if a state apparatus came and nationalized a lot of this stuff, it would be pretty seamless, right? Like the structures are all in place, right? Like you would come in, you would nationalize them, and then you would just give any surplus benefits back to the workers, right? And basically that's it. You're doing socialism, right? Like you're in the socialist idea, and so there is something to be said about just like taking the shit over. Capitalism doesn't care, which is why nationalism is so attractive to the right wing. It moderates capitalism's worst tendencies. I mean, does it moderate capitalism's worst tendencies? Like, I understand why people lean towards nationalism. It makes sense to me. But does it moderate capitalism's worst tendencies? Or does it, like, heighten them? Right? Fun fact about the South used to be part of Mexico, but they lose about 55% of their territories because slavers fled the U.S. because they didn't want to pay taxes. Yet in Mexico, they had to pay taxes and had to release their slaves. So they rebelled against Mexico after they wanted to keep all their properties. Since property is everything. I know, right? Isn't it fucked up, eh? It's fucked up how much energy and how much everybody is putting in. Like, we don't actually get that we are temporary. I think that's a big part of what's going on. Here, hold on. We're about to get a little hoobu-juboo here, so before that, ad break, everybody eat an ad break. Nationalism is the invisible hand in Adam Smith's work. I think a big thing that I think about a lot, like we're so short-sighted in the way that we think, and we really only think like quarter by quarter, and we certainly don't think about how things will be after we die. And we certainly don't think about the temporal nature and the temporary nature of our existences, right? As humans, that we don't lack the capacity for it, but it definitely takes a lot of training. You got to really actually engage in the process of thinking about it and thinking about your place in a much larger system. That what we're doing here is just attempting to make as much profit for ourselves as we can. That's the endeavor. Everything else be damned. But there's no actual genuine consideration of building infrastructure that will persist through time so that the next generation can actually use it. And that's something that we don't actually value. We don't actually value the idea of creating an infrastructure project for the next group to benefit from, right? That it's all just a madcap pursuit of profit. And when we do build and have previously built big infrastructure projects, it's all been based on this idea of generating profit for oneself. So you think about like the interstate system, right? The highway system. Well, the only reason you need to build a highway system is if you're trying to sell cars, right? And if you're trying to convince everybody to have their own individual car. So instead of building up a robust mass transit system, like a rail system, and improving on that technology, no, you got to build this big interstate system and load up all your cities and everything with big, gigantic eyesore highway systems, right? And so if we stopped and actually contemplated ourselves as temporary beings whose real legacy is not what we do now, but what we leave behind, things would actually be different, but we can't actually do it. I'm planning on freezing myself so I can live forever. Unfortunately, they don't have the science to freeze my head. Ah, man, I don't. Who wants to live forever? Adam, you cheated on me with another podcaster? How dare you? How dare you, sir? I am deeply, deeply offended. I'm deeply offended. That's okay, Adam. I understand. One of the things that I think about a lot doing this channel is, like, there are people who used to come in all the time who don't come in anymore, right? And then new people come, right? And then sometimes those old people pop in again, and you say hi to them again, and they kind of touch base with you again, and then they leave again, right? And it's sort of the reality of doing this, you know, is that you get used to somebody being there, and you have a good talk with them and all that kind of stuff, and then they're gone, right? And there is like a constant, persistent, latent fear that exists in my heart that all of you will eventually leave and there will be no new group that comes in. That's sort of the lingering doubt of doing this. But I know that, like, right now the channel is in kind of a bit of a stasis, not necessarily a decline, but definitely a stasis. And I think that's just because it's summer, right? And I think that that's completely fine, right? Like, it's I expected it. Like, everyone's going to the beach and, like, getting out and doing stuff. Like, it makes complete sense, right? And I hope that things start picking up again come fall and winter, when people are more indoors. We'll see. You want to live forever? Guys, I don't think it's a good idea. I just don't think it's a good idea. I think that it's better, we're better off as a species if we die. I also think that, like, it's just better for us. I think it's better for a person to just, like, eventually die. You know? Like, we are meant to be temporary. Like, we're not supposed to be alive for that long. And we're meant to kind of pop up, observe the world that we see around us, make the statements that we make, and then die. Like, it's supposed to be the case. And, like, immortal humans, like, you're basically just asking for, like, 10,000 years of fascism is what you're really asking, right? You think you do till you do, then you turn into the face of Bo. Yeah, that's a good Doctor Who reference right there. The face of Bo. Is that Doctor Who? No, it's not Doctor Who, is it? Yes, it is. It's Doctor Who. Like, it just seems like such a pathetic existence. Like, the more and more I dwell on it, and the more I think about it, especially from the human perspective, right? Because humans, we consume, right? We consume a lot to just exist, right? Like, we don't actually produce much of anything except ideas, and we manifest things into the world, right? Our capacity to imagine and change the world is really what we bring to the table. But outside of that, we are consuming more than anything. And because we have this capacity to change, and because we have this capacity to adapt, and we have the capacity to manifest things into the world, it's better for us to die. Because what will happen if you have, like, an immortal creature, or especially humans, is that the one iteration and the one vision of humanity will take hold, and that will become the only thing. And it'll, by its very nature, the only way to actually change it, and the only way it'll actually shift, is through straight up war and straight up violence. Because eventually there just comes a point when one group of humans find the other to be completely intolerable in terms of the way that they look at things and the way that things are. And like the one benefit that the planet has going for it right now is that humans die, right? Humans die. And straight up, just like the ideas that we were moving forward with, the ideas that we're moving forward with right now will eventually cease to exist because the humans that hold them will die. And if there is a hope in this climate change conversation, it's that the generation that widely holds the position that it's a fake story or fake news or whatever will die, right? And they're just destroying the place on the way out, really. I noticed that when I was walking the other day, a lot of the obvious and more expensive multi-million-dollar homes, no sidewalks, wider streets, curvy, yeah. This goes against my own religious belief because I believe that we are here to be tested and see if we can follow God's teaching, and we will receive eternal life. Also, since I am that is the LDS. I know what LDS is. Latter-day Saint. I knew it. We believe that we can become gods, goddesses, where we share the power of creation, that God himself will grant it to us. See, I don't think that even God knows what's going on. I think that that's something that I have sort of come to realize. Because I tend to accept the concept of a greater being with a higher intellect or a higher existence. I tend to see that to be the case, and that's easy to get to. Like, even through the secular sciences, you can get to it, right? Like, quantum mechanics tells us that we're all a singular energy, right? Like, we are a one energy, we are a one thing, right? Well, if we're a one thing, then my intelligence is part of that one intelligence. Therefore, the energy that exists is intelligent, right? It has the capacity for intellect, and it doesn't take like a big leap in logic to say that like, oh well, my intellect and your intellect and their intellect and all of that intellect is all like a singular intellect that can be collected together and be a collective sort of a thing, right? And the same idea with like sentience, right? And all of that. But when I contemplate like the position of its own existence, like why does it exist instead of simply not exist, right? And to me, the only thing I can come up with is that it simply existed, and just the force of its existence created all the things that were possible to be created, because it is itself the force of creation. And it doesn't know why, right? It doesn't know why it created anything. It doesn't understand what it's here for, and that what we are experiencing is the process of that, the process of its own self-discovery, right? And we are communicating with each other in an effort to discover, to the degree that we are capable of, what is this? Why are we here? What is the purpose of this? Any of this kind of stuff. But we're so confused and bedazzled by our own existence that we've mistaken the illusion of our existence for the reality of it, right? That we perceive our own individual existence to be more important than it actually is, and lack the capacity to have any kind of grander idea or grander kind of thought. And this, to me, this view that this is a testing ground, I more or less take issue with that. I take issue with this concept that this is a testing ground, because testing to do what, for what, to do for what purpose, to what end, right? Like like who what's the endeavor? Why are we? What's the test? Like, what's the actual test? And it seems to me more often than not that when we get into this mindset of a testing ground, that it ends up being a fight, that there's some kind of conflict that exists, right? That we have to fight against Muslims and shit, right? So I get very, and I'm not saying that's what you're I'm not saying that's your position, Eric, but I am saying that the concept that this is a testing ground. I just like a test for what? To what end? If it is a testing ground, well, then we don't know what the questions are. We don't know what we don't know what we're being tested on. We don't know what the capacities are. We don't know any of the things, and more than any of that, we don't know if we achieved it or not. Like, it seems to me to just be fraught with anxiety, to be fraught with a very big, like, concerning aspect of, like, a person's turning their life into something. It seems to me to be an attempt to turn someone's life into something grander or more incredible than it actually is. And like, my view of my own life is that I'm a randomly generated person in a world that itself is also randomly generated, and that we're all doing our best, and any intelligent, loving, caring, compassionate, or even non-present God would understand that, like, oh yeah, this insignificant speck of dust that was randomly generated on this equally insignificant speck of dust likely tried its best, and if I am like, I find the whole evangelical concept of, like, people burning in hell eternally to be like an absurdism. Like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Like I do end up finding something like Dante's Inferno to be a bit like, really? Like, seems like you're setting people up. Seems like something that a crazed lunatic god would do, right? Like something like, if God really is like this highly intelligent, highly omnipotent, highly loving, highly compassionate being, right? Then the concept of hell, to me, where we're here to be tested and then distributed, and we can go up and down a chain or any of that kind of stuff, sounds like petty, childish bullshit. Like, it just sounds so, like, pointless, and something that, like, a fucking child would do, as if he's, like, collecting us like an ant farm or something, and being like, you get to go here, and you get to go here, and you get to go here, and you get to go here. It just turns God into, like, a loser dweeb, in my view. Like, that the only rational position could be of any human who ever existed in this plane of existence. Well, they tried their best. That literally could be the, like, only rational position. That if you were to zoom out to the perspective of God and look at the world as God could see it, the only thing you could say would be, yeah, well, what are you going to do? Like, what did you expect? The thing is crazy. Like, it's a shit show from the start. And the idea that, like, and if God cares so much that he's going to, like, send people to hell, or this is going to be the deciding factor as to whether or not you become a god or not, you think he'd be more involved in the process. You think he'd be more like, hey guys, it's God here, right? And it just seems to me that the end result of all of this is that I will die, right? This body will die, and I will return to the singularity. I'll return to the singular energy and be completely fine with that. And that my existence is part of the larger, grander story of this being trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. Because I don't think that God knows what's going on. I don't think the energy understands what's happening either. Like, I think that it just exists and it doesn't know why. and it's trying to figure it out. And this is the process of its attempt to discover itself. John the Gnostic, yeah, aren't I ever? Funny how I tipped you all off about dry skin. Didn't get shit about tornado warning. Oh yeah, tornado warnings. Turned into altered carbon. 40 plus years of memory, especially mistakes becoming overwhelming at times. I can't imagine 10,000 years of memories. It would be I actually think that you would just start forgetting shit. Like, that's what I really think is the truth, Grinning. I just don't think that you could actually hang on to it. I really think you would just forget. Because we're not built to remember things that happened 10,000 years ago. Like, it's not how we are. We just forget. There is a story about cryo storage places where the electricity failed and a bunch of bodies thawed. Oopsie daisy. Yeah. I don't like religion, but I will stand with anyone against capitalism and imperialism. I mean, the organized religions that exist today have been completely co-opted by the capitalist power structure. They require it at this point. They've built their business model on the idea that there will be poor people that they can then use as props in order to get donations from liberals, right? Like, they benefit from poverty, and that's why they vote to maintain it, and that's why they're not coming out onto the streets. And there's no exception to this. John the Gnostic, yeah. John's just like, I like hot dogs. Anything to stop talking about religion. I took a religion test long ago. It says I was agnostic pagan. Yeah, I could see that of you, Methane. We must purge this chat in the name of the God Emperor. Crusading noises intensify. Hello, Imperial citizen. What's happening in here? By the Emperor. Blood for the Blood God. Our pasta, who art in a colander, draining be your noodles. Thy noodle come, thy sauce be yum. On top, some grated Parmesan. Give us this day our garlic bread. And forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. For thine is delicious. The hunger has been ended, forever and ever. Amen. In my faith, we don't believe there's a literal hell. Rather, everyone will receive a kingdom of glory based on the action that you had on this earth. The lowest level of this glory is 1,000 times better than what we are currently living, and you will get a better kingdom dependent on your actions on this earth. There's another concept. We also believe that God gave us free will. It is up to us to choose between good and evil. Godslayer John, first of Canadian communism. I like it, dude. Oh, honey, there's no singularity but the black hole. That kind of will just neuron decay into Hawking radiation. That's fine. That sounds comfortable. I don't know about forgetting. Anyone who's had flashbacks or sudden panic attacks knows that memories don't always stay below the surface. Yeah, that's a fair point. I just do think that, like... Yeah, anyway. Another thing that our faith preaches is that we are right now is like a seed and want us to get our full potential. If people want to stop talking about religion, I will stop. Oh no, it's interesting and it's part of it, right? Like, I actually do think that, like, a big reason why we're getting into the amount of trouble that we're getting into is that it's become passé to have moral conversations in the society. And we ceded a lot of territory to evangelical fascists, right? Like, evangelical fascists are supposed to be the ones who are, like, the experts on the Bible. They're the ones who have the Bible. And then what that means, though, is that, like, the scientific community don't read the book, right? It's just not part of the society anymore, the general society, right? It's been turned into, like, a niche. And I think that is actually a detriment to the society, that we don't actually have any kind of collective moral language. We don't really have a way to communicate ethics to one another. And so we've allowed the quote-unquote free market to decide. Turns out that that's generating psychopaths. So I think that we could do for a bit more religious conversation. Of course, the big problem with the religious conversations is that a lot of a lot of religions have just become completely co-opted by capitalism, or have refused to actually acknowledge that the scientific literature should be paid attention to. I make the argument that the modern day sciences, like quantum mechanics, reinforce theology, not the other way around. Like, there's all these scientists going around pretending as though there's the choice between religion and science, when really all they're pointing out is that there are literal, like, fucking evangelical fundamentalist fascist losers in the conversation, right? That should be banished. But when these quantum mechanicists start talking about how there's like a singular energy that we all exist in, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like Aquinas. Like, that sounds like Augustus. That sounds like the theologians of old. Like, that's what that sounds like to me. And it just reinforces it, right? And it just makes people like Isaac Newton even more important. But we just don't want to actually move forward in those conversations, right? They're considered passé. Grinning Guys just showed my wife a movie called The Man from Earth. 10,000-year-old man, pretty cool. Sorry for the Borat voice. Y'all need to get in on Front 242, or maybe Neitzer Ebb. I remember Neil Gaiman's Sandman, an absolute masterpiece, by the way. Neil Gaiman's Sandman. There was a character from the 1500s England who was granted immortality and lived to the modern day. He had a wife in the 1940s, but forgot how she smelled. Yeah. There are 7 states that ban atheists from holding public office. I'd say I'm a Jedi, even though I'm really into the ladies. Are Jedi not allowed to, like, be into ladies? I thought that they were. I don't think that it's the right analysis that these people don't read the Bible, because I know so many people who do read their scripture. It's more that they simply don't want to apply that knowledge they gain from scripture and try to do all kinds of mental gymnastics. Keep in mind, for about 300, 400 years, the Westerner committed genocide, on the black and the Indian. These people were fighting back using the scripture against them, They knew exactly what they were doing. Even they removed the part of the Bible that demonstrated the common men rebelling against their slaves. So I mean, part of reading and part of being literate is understanding what you're reading, right? Like, of course, someone who claims to have spiritual knowledge and this is nothing new, which I think it makes it even more important for us to read it, so that we can say to them, like, yeah, you're admitting this, and we'll be able to say it to them clearly, right? That, like, yeah, you're using this scripture to defend this while omitting why do you do that, right? But right now we've just ceded it to them. We've just been like, well, that must be what the book says. When, look, even their own text decries their actions, right? Even their own books do it. So that's why I say we should read it, because part of being literate is understanding what you're reading, right? And they're just not. Rent's soaring. Some people are getting priced out. No shit. CEOs, not working people, are causing inflation. Report shows soaring executive pay. No fucking shit. Right? The AFL-CIO's latest annual analysis of top executive pay was published Monday with the following conclusion. CEOs, not working people, are causing inflation. No fucking shit. In recent months, corporate bosses and top Federal Reserve officials have pointed to workers' wages as a factor in surging prices, which have pushed overall inflation in the United States to a 4-decade high. But the AFL-CIO's new report attempts to reframe the national inflation discussion, emphasizing that while wage increases won by ordinary workers are drawing outsized attention from policymakers and executives, CEOs' pay hikes significantly outpaced the wage increases of rank-and-file employers last year. Titled Greedflation, the report shows that in 2021, CEOs of S&P 500 companies received on average $18.3 million in total compensation. The highest paid executive among S&P 500 companies last year was Expedia's Peter Kern, who brought in an eye-popping $296 million in total compensation. Other executives at the top of the 2021 list where Amazon CEO Andy Jassy, 213 million. Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger, 179 million. Apple CEO Tim Cook, 99 million. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon, 84 million. Runaway CEO pay is a symptom of greedflation, when companies increase prices to boost corporate profits and create windfall payouts for corporate CEOs. Like, get fucked, right? Like, get completely fucked. I'm so just, like, over it. I'm so fucking over it. Oh, okay. This is what we're going to do. We're going to draw the number. We're going to do the number draw. And maybe we'll read that article. I got to get some water, man. I got to get some water. Oops. YouTube. I don't know why I put that in the YouTube. Click. We got 12 people in the chat. What am I? David Lynch. I expect to see 12 numbers. Here we go. For today's number. Your wife chooses 6. Here we go. Let's see if Adam's wife... Okay, I'm going to go have some water. Be right back. 10 balls. Each ball has a number. Pick a number.
Today's number is 9.
9. Who got it? Who got it? Did anybody get it? Did anybody get it? We missed it again, eh? We missed it again. Unbelievable. Faves together. First time I've ever seen you in here. You dropped a 9. We'll say that it happened. Beginner's luck. Beginner's luck for faves together. Look at this. That means you gotta stick around. That means you gotta stick around, guys. Oh my god. I love it when a first timer gets it. That's the funniest. Oh, thanks for admitting it, faves together. I appreciate that. Stay honest. Stay honest. Good for you. Good for you. I appreciate and value that. And you know what? You know what? Let's say that the 6s win today. Because what is a 6 but an upside down 9, right? That's all. And that's an esoteric result. That's the way David Lynch would have wanted it, right? He'd be there saying, well, you got a 6 instead of a 9. That's fine. The fuck? Content. Are you upset with that content? You're just like, what? No, we're a pure people here. They didn't get the 9s. Fuck them. Fuck them. Dude, fuck it all. All right. This shit's happening. So I'm really annoyed by this, dude. This annoys the shit out of me. If the counselors go along with this, because I think they do have to push it through the counselorship, but it's just like, it's so obviously a consolidation of corporate power, right? Like, it's so obviously Doug Ford going to John Tory and basically saying, hey, we should just let you run the place, forget the council. Right? Like, it's just so fucking annoying. The City of Toronto Act, the City of Ottawa Act, and the Municipal Act would need to be amended to enhance the mayoral powers. Like, it just... Okay, Eric is, like, insistent that we do this Jacobin article. Jacobin Economic Freedom Index. Like, I mean, we know the economic freedom. Like, I can tell you straight up, the reason why economic freedom rankings don't tell us anything is, like, the most like, the Confederate South would have had a high economic freedom index, right? Like, oh, you can buy slaves. Economic freedom is high, right? Like, that's what they're really... But conservative and libertarians love to cite studies ranking different countries' levels of quote-unquote economic freedom as evidence for the glories of capitalism. They're just one problem. The rankings are nonsense, right? This is yet another like proof positive that like economics in this culture is just completely fraudulent. I've been saying it over and over again, right? If you've got a degree from like the Fraser Institute, or if you've got a degree from like an economics degree, you're worse than illiterate here in the West, right? You know less than nothing. Last month, the Fraser Institute put out its annual Economic Freedom of the World report. As usual, it showed that economic freedom is positively correlated with many good things and negatively correlated with many bad ones. Defenders of capitalism love the Fraser Institute. Libertarian philosopher Jason Brennan, for example, has made heavy use of the rankings in the context of criticizing the arguments of Marxist philosopher G.A. Cohen. Brennan argues that given all the positive things that come with greater economic freedom, the debate about whether capitalism is superior to socialism has a clear victor, the pro-capitalist side. The only remaining question is whether socialism would be better in a hypothetical world where humans were less selfish and lazy. Economist Peter Leeson has deployed the Fraser Institute's reports to mount an even more strident defense of capitalism. Many commentators, Leeson writes, think that capitalism deserves 2 cheers for yielding many good outcomes, while also thinking that excessive or uncontrolled capitalism can be bad. Leeson says this is wrong, because the Fraser Institute's numbers show that capitalism deserves 3 cheers. Although many relationships in the social scientists are unclear, capitalism's relationship to development isn't one of them. Unless one is ashamed of unprecedented increases in income, rising life expectancy, greater education, and more political freedom, there's no reason to be a milquetoast defender of capitalism. What an idiotic thing to say. Unprecedented increases in income. Wages have stagnated for the last 30 years. Rising life expectancy. Life expectancy is on the decline in the West. It's obvious. We've measured it. Greater education. What are you talking about? Like, what are you even talking about here, dude? More political freedom. Hey, you know how they round up and arrest communists? Isn't that fun? How they do that? Right? Isn't it cool how they, like, smash the Black Panther movement? Right? Like, guys like this just don't want to acknowledge that the wealth that capitalism generates is stolen wealth. They don't want to acknowledge that capitalism operates through theft. That, yeah, of course, America appears to be rich. It literally hollowed out Africa, South America, Southeast Asia. Like, if it's like you're looking at like a pirate king saying that, yeah, obviously piracy is the best system. Look at how much gold I have. Ha ha ha. These are bold claims. And if you just look at the Fraser Institute's many graphs and assume that the x-axis really is about something called economic freedom, or in Leeson's language, countries becoming more capitalist and less socialist, the data does seem to prove that people live longer and are more prosperous, more educated, and more politically free in capitalist countries. How then could anyone be socialist? How could anyone even be a social democrat aspiring to curb excessive or uncontrolled capitalism through expansive social programs and a regulatory state? The more capitalist a society is, the better the outcomes. There's just one problem with this. The premise is nonsense. Even a quick glance at the Fraser Institute's report reveals that the numbers that emerge from their methodology are flatly irrelevant to anything in dispute between social democrats, socialists, and defenders of laissez-faire capitalism. First, though, it's worth pausing to talk about definitions. Many socialists think that a fully socialist society would be one where workers controlled the means of production. Since there's never been a society where even a significant portion of the economy was put under workers' control, the degree to which a society is socialist in this sense is hard to measure. Other socialists, though, have thought that state ownership of the bulk of the economy would be sufficient. That can be measured. There have been societies like the USSR where pretty much the entire economy was state-owned. Countries like the United States with little state ownership, and countries like Norway, where almost a third of the workforce works in the public sector, and the state holds shares in many companies, are somewhere in between. Similarly, we can make a distinction between socialism after capitalism, i.e. socialism in the strict sense, and socialism within capitalism, i.e. the policies that socialists around the world have fought to make life better for the working class people within basically capitalist structures. This, too, can be measured. We can compare societies based on how much the state intervenes to make it easier for workers to organize labor unions, or the difference between healthcare systems like the one in the United States, where only a minority of the population qualifies for public health insurance, Canada, where there's universal public health insurance but the hospitals themselves are mostly private, and in countries like Britain, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, where most or all of the hospitals are publicly owned and the doctors and nurses are public employees. Rankings comparing societies by the degree of state ownership would be relevant to arguments about whether societies are better off with capitalism or with at least some form of socialism. Similarly, ranking societies in terms of their healthcare system or the degree of friendliness toward union organization would be relevant to arguments about reforms socialists support within capitalism. But all you need to do to confirm the Fraser Institute isn't doing anything like this is to glance at the handy interactive map on their website. Play with the map for about 5 seconds, and you'll discover that Norway and Sweden are both far more economically free than Haiti. You read that right. Norway and Sweden tie for 37th place. Haiti sits all the way down at 118th place. That means Haiti, according to the Fraser Institute, is less capitalist than Sweden or Norway. Pop quiz! Does Haiti have a more expansive welfare state than Sweden or Norway? Does it have a more favorable environment for labor unions? Does it have a larger public sector? These aren't serious questions. So what's going on here? The 5 categories the Fraser Institute uses to judge different countries are size of government, legal system and property rights, sound money, freedom to trade internationally, and regulation. 4 of those categories at least sound like they have something to do with contested issues between social democrats, socialists, and defenders of uncontrolled capitalism, although property rights would be more obviously relevant than the oddly mashed together category legal system and property rights. Hold that thought. Meanwhile, what's this about sound money? Here's how the executive summary describes the category. Inflation erodes the value of rightfully earned wages and savings. Sound money is thus essential to defend property rights. That thus is a little odd, since the underlying thought seems to be not so much that low inflation is essential to defending property rights, as that it's essential for property owners to get the benefits they would otherwise receive from those property rights. More importantly, though, the order of explanation here is the opposite of what we usually get in misleading right-wing arguments. That the economic woes of Venezuela, for example, show that socialism produces bad outcomes. Usually, libertarians and conservatives say that social policies are bad because they lead to inflation. They don't define inflation itself as somehow intrinsically uncapitalistic. How about the legal system and property rights? The description in the executive summary is too vague to make clear what's being measured, but the full report helpfully breaks this down into subcategories. A. Judicial independence, impartial courts, protection of property rights, military interference in rules of law and politics, integrity of the legal system, legal enforcement of contracts, regulatory costs of the sale of real property, reliability of police. Of these 8 categories, C is the only one that sounds remotely relevant to the capitalism versus socialism debate. And even there, it's only relevant if what property is being protected from its nationalization or expropriation by the workers themselves, as in Argentina's recovered factory movement of the early 2000s. at a stretch. G might also be salient, though the regulatory costs socialists want to impose on businesses, like better workplace safety laws, a higher minimum wage, measures to make it harder to bust unions, rarely have much to do with the sale of businesses. The other 6 are just flagrantly irrelevant. What socialist's complaint about the police is that they're too reliable? What socialist doesn't want workers to be able to take their bosses to court for violating union contracts? Have you met a socialist whose main complaint about U.S. courts is that they're too impartial and too independent on the government, or that the legal system has too much damn integrity? For a hint as to what the real complaints are, Google Stephen Dongzinger. The high watermark of absurdity, though, comes at D. Do socialists want the military to interfere more in legal and political systems? Ask Salvador Allende about that one. One could argue that even if none of this has to do with whether societies are more capitalist or less capitalist, it's at least to do with whether those societies are living up to the ideals of many advocates of capitalism. Fair enough, but that's like saying the Soviet Union scored poorly on many of the standards near and dear to the heart of many socialists. There's a long tradition of socialists advocating for free speech rights, for example. We'd look pretty silly if we'd ranked countries by how socialist they were by using the degree of free speech protections as one of the metrics, thus giving the Soviet Union a lower socialism score than the United States, and thus triumphantly concluding that the degree of socialism was positively correlated with the free speech protections. This is exactly what the Fraser Institute and libertarians do, touting its findings are doing when they count societies as more economically free, or in Brennan and Leeson's hands, more capitalist, in part because they're less corrupt and unstable, and then use this to assert that economic freedom, or capitalism itself, leads to more democracy and better political outcomes. Are there worse outcomes in societies with high inflation, high judicial corruption, and frequent military coups? No kidding. This is supposed to have what exactly to do with long-standing debates about capitalism and socialism? Does the history of the 20th century include plenty of fodder for intellectually honest criticism of at least some forms of socialism? Of course, but the Fraser Institute is just cooking the books. Ugh. That's a big long article to just say, fuck the Fraser Institute, man. Like, the Fraser Institute, it's as fraudulent as it gets. Like, who gives a shit what these guys think anymore? Like, their policies are a failure. Everything they think has been widely debunked by reality itself. The idea that capitalism gained its wealth because of some force of its own ability, as opposed to just literally going to other countries and stealing their resources, is patently absurd. Like, this is why I say over and over again, like, the Fraser Institute, if you're a Fraser Institute person, you're worse than stupid. Like, you're worse than illiterate. Like, you actually think you know something when you don't. And for you to claw back up to become illiterate is itself an entire life's work. Like, these people exist exclusively to justify the extraction of wealth to the oligarch class. That's why they exist. Of course everything they say is going to be nonsense. But they just prove over and over again that we're too stupid to recognize these things. We're easily grifted as a people. We're easily grifted. Like, it's staggering. If you want to prove capitalism is great, first brute force equal exchange between colonizers and the colonized. Yeah, we will find very quickly that capitalism relies on the presence of extreme poor. Yeah, exactly. This may cause some tensions here, folks. Jeremy Apple is looking for current or former Communist Party of Canada members. He is asking to be DM'd on Twitter and is promising anonymity. Yeah, the Communist Party of Canada is going through some internal shit right now. Real straightforward. Like, I'm not going to get into it because I don't feel like I should, but it is going through, like, an internal thing. So don't be too surprised if that news kind of comes out. And I'm not surprised to see that somebody like that there are people, I don't know who Jeremy Apple is, but there are people going around trying to find what the story is. I'm interested in reading a detailed bounce story regarding the latest ongoings of the Communist Party of Canada, because only the former members are vocal on the social media for the most part. I mean, it seems to me like the story of the Communist Party of Canada is one of constant internal coup. It just seems like every time new membership comes into the party, it's found out later on that they exist to dismantle the party and to make it harder for the communists to organize. Like, that seems to be really what's happening in that party. Just over and over and over again, like, there's something that fractures it, right? Which obviously is being done on purpose. Like, I think you'd have to be nuts to think that capitalists wouldn't send people in there, that, like, the CIA and CSIS wouldn't constantly be trying to get involved in that in order to foment internal strife. Like, it seems obvious to me that that's what's going on. I think they will, good to see you, Tinker, I think they will try to provoke Russia to a wider war than blame even climate change on Putin. Yeah. Like, obviously. And Americans are so fucking stupid that they'll buy it, right? Like, they'll buy it. Like, the question is whether or not a place like Poland will get involved, right? Like, Lukashenko from Belarus said that he thinks that this will expand, right? Yeah, Canadians, yeah, the Western world, right? Like, the Western world is going to buy into this dumb, idiotic narrative. Yeah, Poland is very Russia-phobic, that's true. But the question is whether or not they're willing to actually dedicate troops to the war. That's really what it comes down to. And Russia is doing everything it can to secure the Donbass region. And I think that's probably about as far as it's going to go. Like, I don't think it has the capacity to move into the rest of Ukraine. And if it did, it would earn a lot of ire. Like, more or less the territory that Russia has now is the territory that it's going to keep. And while I think it would be very happy with some kind of diplomatic solution, I think it is more or less accepting that it's just going to have to take and hold the Donbass and just have it. And just have it be that way. Yeah. They'll keep attacking Russia with long-range artillery and missiles. Yeah. That kind of stuff is happening. And it's... The question is it going to escalate or is it going to de-escalate? And because of how psychotic America is, and it's completely psychotic, it is going to escalate. And it's going to move towards escalation, right? That for them, it's about bleeding Russia. That they are fine with watching Russia destroy Ukraine because it's bleeding Russia out. Which is the goal. The Ukrops have had some success with the HIMARS. They've destroyed some large ammo depots in the Donbass. Yep. The Ukrainians have not been effective in terms of pushing... in terms of pushing people, in terms of pushing the line, right? They haven't created a counteroffensive that's been particularly successful. And so while you can point at these sort of small victories here and there, they haven't actually made any significant territory gains, right? And meanwhile, the Russians have had, like, major surrenders. Like, you think about the surrender that happened at Mariupol, right? Like, there have been major surrenders that have occurred. And so, what the Ukrainians need, is troops. That's really what they need. And if troops are not willing to move in, if troops are not willing to actually get involved in it, then it's going to be as it is now, essentially. and the Russians will steadily secure the territory, build administrative power, right, and start rebuilding to the degree that they can, and just essentially claim the territory as theirs, right? That's what's happening, right? And I more or less believe that the Donbass region will become its own independent state, and that independent state will get recognized by the vast majority of the population of the Earth, just not the Western world, right? So, Jay Watts was problematic. No, and let me be fair, I don't know that much about the history of the Communist Party. Like I don't know that much about the history of it here in Canada. The problem is the Communist Party. Have you seen the website? Jokes aside, I've never joined the Communist Party because of interactions with folk like Jay. My interactions with the people of the Communist Party has been more or less positive. Like, I do think that they look older. They look like an older party. It makes sense that, like, they seem disorganized. They seem underfunded, right? And to me, I just think, like, yeah, of course. Like, this is a party that's under fire constantly. And it's going to be completely destroyed as often as possible. Anyway. Of course, in the midst of all of this, here, I hate to do it to you guys. Haha. Sorry about that, guys. I don't really like doing it. I prefer not to. The way to avoid it is to like, share, subscribe, and give me money. Just give me money. Give me money directly, and then I won't have to do it. Yeah, I mean, this article here is like, it's just getting to the point now where I'm like, yeah, we know. Like, it's like getting to be brutal, you know? And like, I hate these sorts of conclusions just piss me off. Instead of reaping enormous profits, corporations like Loblaws should pay workers decent wages. It's like finger wagging. The pandemic has exposed a great divide. Yabba yabba. It's time to not only curb the power of billionaires, but to end the system that produces them. Okay, how are you going to do that, champ? Like, how are you actually going to do that? Is that a legitimate thing to say? Is that a legitimate thing to, like... It's just... I just feel like these writers are constantly, like, wagging their finger. And I'm like, okay, where's your street movement? Oh, it doesn't exist? Then who gives a fuck? I don't even know what to say anymore. They treat us like a toilet bowl. Cruise ships dump billions of liters of toxic waste in Canada, report finds. Cruise ships are great. Cruise ships are great. Right? Like, why in God's name are we still going on with this, man? Why in God's name are we still tolerating this goddamn bullshit? Like, literally, like, just big, giant, floating toilets. Yeah. Even though I may not be on the same page, paragraph, sentence, or word in regards to the Communist Party, I'm happy. I just think that what I'm looking at with the Communist Party is essentially a party that's building itself up from nothing, right? I really do think that it has been largely destroyed on purpose, and I think that it's attempting to build itself up from basically nothing, and that the people who are involved in it are dealing with a constant attack. Yeah, because we're a sick species, maybe our destruction as a species is a good thing overall. I mean, it just seems to me like we're too susceptible. Like, we're capable of living in imagination, but we're too susceptible of believing that imagination is reality. It seems to me like we really struggle with this concept of reality, and that reality asserts itself. And we seem to get too caught up in the idea of our own greatness, too caught up in the idea of our own power, and we seem not capable of balancing our imagination of how things are with what's actually happening. That seems to be the great human flaw, that we have the capacity for imaginative thought, and yeah, more numbers on the screen gets that like dopamine push, right? It's like people who gamble, right? It's like people who do slots and shit, right? Gives you that dopamine dump, that you're just like, yeah, I got the dopamine dump, yeah. Oh, more numbers on the screen, yeah, right? Like it's that kind of thing, and we don't seem to really be capable of being like, okay, but what's real? Like, let's have a real conversation about reality for a minute. And we don't actually seem to be that keen on those conversations. Like, I said it before earlier, like, we're temporal. Like, we're not here for that long, you know? Our existences are very fleeting. And if we are doing anything that has any value, it is erecting institutions that are useful, that are beneficial, and that persist. If there's any value to be derived from the human experience, it must be that setting up the next generation to have a better go of it is obviously what we should be doing. That if we have any value whatsoever. Because at least then the next iteration or the next generation of humans will benefit from our existence, right? But we don't think that way. Like, this culture certainly doesn't. Like, maybe we used to, but it doesn't exist anymore in this society. We're so disgraceful and selfish and petty. And, like, we venerate, like, the most insignificant people in the society and bombard them with wealth and privilege and all this stuff, but they're meaningless. Like the Kardashians. These people who are just like of no value or merit or anything to anyone. They literally are just like famous for being famous. That's it. They're just rich because they're rich, you know? And they got to a place where everybody was looking at them, and so when they hold up a handbag, the handbag makers are willing to give them a bunch of money for it. It's just dumb. It's just dumb. It's stupidity on stupidity, and it's not helping anybody. It's never going to help anybody, and we're just caught up in it. It's like a hysteria, you know. And meanwhile, we're like actually destroying the place because of it, in big and significant ways. It's shocking. Like, Australia's environment in shocking decline. Report finds. This is coming from the BBC. If the BBC is finally starting to report on this, things are getting deadly serious, right? Usually the strategy of a place like the BBC is to ignore it, or if they present something like this, they pull out some fossil fuel-funded asshole, treat them the same. Australia's environment is in a shocking state. Faces further decline from amplifying threats, according to an anticipated report. The survey of Australia's ecological systems, conducted every 5 years, found widespread abrupt changes. These can be blamed on climate change, habitat loss, invasive species, pollution, and mining, it said. The threats are not being adequately managed, meaning they are on track to cause more problems. Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek said the documents paints a shocking and a sometimes depressing story, vowing to implement new policies and laws. The 2,000-page State of the Environment report, commissioned by the government, found or reiterated 19 ecosystems are on the brink of collapse. There are now more non-native plant species in Australia than native ones. Australia has lost more species to extinction than any other continent. All, bar one category of environment examined, has deteriorated since 2016, and more than half are now in a poor state. If we continue on the trajectory that we are on, the precious places, landscapes, animals, and plants that we think of when we think of home may not be here for our kids or grandkids, she said. The koala, and gang cockatoo are among more than 200 animal and plant species with upgraded threats since 2016. Many of those species are unique to Australia. In recent years, Australia has suffered severe drought, historic bushfires, successive years of record-breaking floods, and 6 mass bleaching events on the Great Barrier Reef. In previous reports, we've been largely talking about the impact of climate in the future sense. Professor Emma Johnston, another report chief author, told the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. In this report, there's a stark contrast, because we are now documenting widespread impacts of climate change. The author found Australia lacks an adequate framework to manage its environment, instead relying on confusing systems that straddle different tiers of government. Federal government spending on sustaining biodiversity has dropped at the same time risks have been increasing, it said. The report was handed to the previous government last year, but its release was delayed until after the election in May. It tells a story of crisis and decline in Australia's environment, and of a decade of government inaction and willful ignorance, Ms. Plibersky said in statement. A spokesperson for the Liberal opposition said it had a strong environment record while in government. Australia has vowed to cut carbon emissions by 43% on 2005 levels by 2030. Under its previous government, the target was 26 to 28%. Yeah, everybody's just going to blame the Chinese. I've seen that in the chat before. People have come in and tried to blame the Chinese. Yeah. Nah, the Communist Party folks are trying to hold on to power. Plus, they stink at running the party. Have you seen their website? How are they attracting new members? I was banned from an event for one dissenting comment. Oh boy. Yeah. Banning members is a good way to ensure that your party goes nowhere, right? Which seems to be the point, doesn't it? I'm immortal. I rode a tank and held a commissar's rank when the Red Army raged and the Nazis stank. What are you talking about, Compton? Yeah, that's so shocking. Climate scientists warning for the last 20 years. Yeah. Like, I can't even be shocked about it anymore, right? Like, I can't even be shocked about it anymore. Like, what are we shocked about here? Like, we know. We've known about this all along. We've been talking about it all along. We've been saying it's coming all along. When these events occur, we're saying, yeah, we know. Like, we've known the whole time. I don't know why we're saying it's shocking. Am I shocked? Are you shocked? I'm not shocked. Good to see you, Major. I'm not shocked. Like, I'm not sitting here going, oh my God. Like, yeah. Like, we know. We've known all along. And yet, Toronto area rent prices rise by fastest pace on record. Like, enjoy the spike of homelessness. That's definitely coming. Canada's internet prices are rising again. Canada already has the highest internet prices in the world with the worst service. Like, what do you think's happening here? Oh yeah, the WEF suggests obscuring the sun to combat climate change. Can I tell you, this idea gets floated every couple of years, and it is the most blisteringly stupid thing I have ever heard in my fucking life. Do you understand what would happen to the planet, to life on Earth, if we obscured the sun? Like, you get that literally every plant that exists requires sunlight, right? Like, you get that our entire agricultural system, right? All of the jungles and the forests, right? Like, all of it requires the sun and the rays that come from the sun. Like, the idea that we're willing to obscure the sun before we confront the demonically evil system of the capitalist death cult should tell you that these people are psychotic. Like, and I know I use the word psychotic a lot, but we're there. Like, these people are psychopaths who, and at this stage you gotta think that they know how destructive that this would be. Yeah, scorch the sky like the fucking Matrix. Yeah. Like, it seems to me like you've got to live in an absolute total place of complete delusion or just extreme evil to even float this as a serious idea. Like, a third grader can point out the problems with this, right? Like, don't plants need the sun? They don't care, though. They really don't care. Using a fleet of space bubbles the size of Brazil to reflect the sun's rays away from Earth. Listen to how fucking crazy this sounds. Like, listen to how fucking absolutely crazy this sounds. When, you know what else would work? You know what would work almost immediately? If we stopped polluting. That would work almost immediately. How do we know it would work almost immediately? Because when the pandemic happened and we all stayed home for a month, it worked immediately. Like, stop polluting. Straight up. Stop polluting. MIT scientists say space bubbles could help reverse climate change by reflecting solar heat away from Earth. The video begins. Scientists say eliminating just 1.8% of the sun's rays would completely reverse global warming. However, the WEF is cautioning its young audience, assuring them that this is the technology of the future, and that the task of decarbonizing life on Earth is no less urgent. Robots would manufacture bubbles in space. This just sounds like something that's coming from like a Coke drink. It sounds like somebody did a whole bunch of Coke, went to bed, had a fucking Coke dream, and then got up, did a bunch more Coke, and is now pitching this. Yeah. However, the WF adds the MIT researcher said it could be too risky and could have unintended consequences for the biosphere. No fucking shit. No fucking shit. Like, this is how stupid it's getting. Just stop polluting. Just fucking stop. Stop producing carbon. Stop. Like, it's very simple. Send people home. Tell them to stay home. Cut back on all these big fucking dumbass trucks. All this stupid bullshit. Like, we need a war economy. Like, we need an actual war economy where we're saying outright, yeah, if you pollute, we'll just put you in prison. Straight up. That's the only thing that's actually going to work. Is a government that is actually saying to these psychopaths, yeah, if you pollute, we'll just put you in jail. Very straightforwardly. Like, Jeff Bezos' super yacht. Oh yeah, if you turn the key on that thing and turn it on, we'll put you in jail. Oh, if you shoot another one of these rockets at space, we'll put you in jail. Oh yeah, these private jets? Yeah, if you turn the key on that and turn it on, we'll put you in jail. Oh, that means you're going to sell all your shit and leave? Good, leave. Bye. We don't need psychopaths here. Like, it's where we're at. And the idea that we're actually talking about this shit with any kind of seriousness. Yeah, the thing that we're going to do is we're going to put bubbles in space. And that's going to deflect the solar energy from the world. And there'll be no consequence. And everything will be... Fuck you. Fuck you, man. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, humanity is such a goddamn embarrassment. We're so fucking embarrassing. The solution to this problem is not difficult. It actually isn't. Like, ensure that you have enough movement going on so that the agricultural procedure goes. You don't cause a fucking famine, right? Make sure your people are fed, right? But to these dumb moron idiots who are driving their big stupid tank trucks around, tell them to go fuck themselves. But of course we can't do that, because what's going to happen? You're gonna get a party that goes, we're gonna do more big trucks. Everyone gets a free big truck, and then everybody will vote for that party because we're children. We're too fucking stupid for this. Like, we're too fucking stupid. Like, that's the bottom line on this. We're too fucking stupid. We've got to take the fork and we've got to put it in the light socket. And it doesn't matter if people are saying, like, hey, if you put if you put it in the light socket, you're gonna get shocked. Don't do that. It doesn't matter. They're going, well, I don't think that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right at all. I'm gonna put the fork in the light socket. Oh, and then when they do it, what are they gonna say? Oh, it's the immigrants. Like, we're too stupid. That's why all of this technology is a bad idea, right? That's why we shouldn't do it. Because we're far too stupid. Like, it really is like we're giving orcs iPhones. Like, we're giving fucking orcs like laser technology and shit. Like, that's what it is. And what are the orcs going to use it for? They're going to destroy everything with it. Why? They're orcs. Right? It really is that way. Like, we are way too stupid to have this technology. We should definitely not have it. Like, for sure. Yeah, but we can't feed the poor. Oh no, too expensive, too complicated, yeah. Let's just make a flesh canopy of the poor. Stretch their skin together like a leather space umbrella. Cotton, you're thinking. You're thinking. Let's do something real. Right? Let's make those poor worth something. Right? That'll turn them into productive members of society. I've already talked about this. UN leader warns against climate collective suicide as heat wave grips Europe. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres issued a dire warning to leaders from 40 nations gathered in Berlin to discuss climate change response measures as part of the Petersburg Climate Dialogue. Half of humanity is in the danger zone from floods, droughts, extreme storms, and wildfires. No nation is immune, yet we continue to feed our fossil fuel addiction, Guterres said in a video message to the assembled leaders on Monday. What troubles me most is that in facing this global crisis, we are failing to work together as a multilateral community. Nations continue to play the blame game instead of taking responsibility for our collective future. We cannot continue this way, Guterres said. We have a choice: collective action or collective suicide. It is in our hands. Collective action? Collective action? That sounds like communism. Oh, we can't have communism. The UN is a communist organization. That's what it is. It's a communist organization, and if we listen to the UN, then communism will spread and it'll be terrible. Communism's the worst thing that ever happened. We're too fucking stupid, dude. Like, we're too stupid. Like, we at this stage in the game, all that is left for anyone with a rational brain in their head, for anyone who is a thinker, for anyone who has any compassion or empathy or intellect, is to take to the streets, is to surround the halls of power, is to go on strike, is to stop participating in this. There's no other solution. There's nothing left. I just cut myself. Isn't that nice? Have you heard people say the UN is communist before? Yeah. I have. Like, people are stupid, dude. Like, the stupidity cannot be overstated. Like, people are fucking stupid. And what we are facing is the fact that capitalists are more than willing to take advantage of people's stupidity in order to benefit themselves. Like, it's pathetic. The system of capitalism is ultimately pathetic. Because instead of actually facing these very serious issues in order to help people and help the species and help the society, these psychopath billionaires are more than willing to manipulate stupid people so that they can make a penny for themselves. And I've talked about this before in the past, but it's something I've got to start talking about more. I think that they know that they're doing it. I think that people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, I think that they're aware that what they're doing is destroying the species and the planet. I think they know. I don't think it's happening on accident anymore. I think that what has happened is that these people are so psychopathic and so disconnected from reality in major and significant ways that they have come to view themselves as the only thing that matters. They view themselves as gods. That they are not part of a larger system, that the system only exists to service and facilitate them. And they see their own death not as part of the structure of the system, but as something offensive for them to find vengeance on and claim vengeance against. And so the vengeance that they are taking on the world that exists exclusively to service them is to destroy it in an act of total childish psychopathic spite. That's what I think is actually going on. That these billionaires have gone completely psychotic and are destroying the planet on purpose with the full knowledge that that's what they're doing, because the planet dares to destroy them. That if I die, then it dies. I think that's exactly where we are. Yeah, if I can't have it, no one else can. Well, and it doesn't matter to them, because the Earth and the universe only exists to serve them in the first place. Right? Like, that's the only reason the Earth and the universe exists for these people. What is the nature of the protest at Bloor and Bedford on the 1st, 4 p.m.? Please come if you can. Who is organizing it? I am. I am organizing it with a disabled trans woman by the name of Isabella Gamp. She has started her own organization called POOF, Protecting ODSP OW Funding. I have gotten Socialist Action involved in it, so they're going to be coming as well. But who's the central organizer? You're looking at him. Hi, it's me. I am doing what I feel everyone should be doing. If I can do it, you can do it. Reach out to your local community people. Reach out to reach out to anybody. Anyone who's willing to come at this stage in the game. If I can do it, you can do it. I say this all the time to everybody. Go do it. Set the date. Print the flyer. Hand out the flyer. And when you organize it and nobody shows up, come in here, we'll cry about it, and then do it again. And then do it again. And then do it again. Because that's what it is. That's what this is. Like, we're fighting back. And we're fighting back against a system that has literally abandoned us. It's total abandonment at this point. There is no political organization within the system that gives a shit about human life at all, period. Full stop. It doesn't exist. The NDP don't. The conservatives certainly don't. The liberals don't. At best, you will get someone pretending like they give a shit. But they don't. They care about their own wealth and prestige and power. That's what they care about. They're not interested in helping even their own children. Like, they don't give a fuck at all. So it's up to us. Ben, I just saw today, seriously, a meme of Karl and Klaus beside each other with a Marx quote about communism being ending private property, and under Klaus is the quote, "You'll own nothing and be happy." Oops, I just hit the like button. Yeah, please hit the like button. Like, share, subscribe. It actually does matter, although I'm sure that I'm deprioritized, right? What is it, black shadow banned, right? I'm sure that that's happening. I know that that's been happening to much larger groups than mine, right? I know that's been happening to much larger channels than mine. People like David Dole have commented on it. People like Kyle Kalinske have commented on it. Chris Hedges has commented on it. So we know it's all happening, right? All right, guys. It's a few minutes early, but I'm going to close it down. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes that you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. And to answer your question, Ben, before we go, I am protesting. We want to see ODSP raised. Yeah, ODSP funding. That's what it is for. Because where do you think the homeless come from? All right, guys. Good luck. We're going to need it.